After his whole body transformed in the air, it turned into a dazzling golden light. It was as if his whole body had turned invisible. Countless fist shadows rushed out from it and suddenly condensed. All the golden light condensed into a huge fist. Lu Li's face darkened. Seeing the irresistible fist technique, she steadied herself and the sword technique in her hand surged. Ever since she fought with Jin Yangshao, she clearly felt a pressure. Her mana always had a feeling that it couldn't continue. This feeling was like being sick. Jin Yangshao was a demon. She didn't believe in restraining it at first, but now she did. She furiously slashed out with her sword. The two of them were close in strength, and the scene was soul-stirring. Everyone present stared with their eyes wide open, afraid that they would miss the exciting part. At this level, victory or defeat was often decided in the blink of an eye. Flower stream flash. When the sword was unleashed, the scattered sword technique turned into plum blossoms that drifted out. There seemed to be a flowery fragrance, but an incomparably sharp sword light flashed through the plum blossoms. Condense the sword. Everyone present nodded secretly. Condensing the sword light infinitely to form the greatest sharpness should put more pressure on the invincible golden sun body. Moreover, at this moment, the sharp light flashed on the sword light. At first glance, it looked like a brittle light, but in fact, it was a spy shadow. An ordinary person's eyesight might be able to see more than 300 swords, and those with better eyesight might be able to see more than 700 swords. In fact, it was more than 1,300 swords. Many people were already shocked speechless that the sword technique could burst out more than 1,300 swords in an instant. Their evaluation of Lu Li's talent increased by a few degrees. They were even more amazed by her intelligence. No matter how strong the defense of the invincible golden sun body was, it would not be able to withstand the continuous destruction of one sword after another. Jin Yangshao Lu Li, which disciple of the younger generation in the Tianqing school can be their match? The senior from the Tianqing school asked. He looked at the disciples on the side and was dispirited. Of course, in the Tianqing school, there was no lack of powerful warriors. There were many who were at a higher realm than the two of them, but they were all old. As for those like Qin Qing who had a fate wheel of less than 300, none of them could compete. Over the years, the Tianqing school felt like it was going downhill. But it had a strong foundation, and the support of the Celestial King. Ding ding ding. The sword pierced the golden fist technique, and a high-frequency crisp sound burst out. It was as if the eardrums were pierced. What? Under the glittering golden light, a certain kind of folding appeared. Seeing this scene, many people, who had straightened their backs, relaxed helplessly. Lu Li's sword could not break the golden light with more than 1,300 stabs. The invincible golden sun body could fold another one easily. What was more, the invincible golden sun body could add 100 or even 1,000 rays of golden light. There was no other way. There was really no other way. The saying that the invincible golden sun body could crush the sword technique of the same realm was not groundless. In a corner of the Qingling Mountain, an old man with an immortal aura stood in the smoke between the cliffs. Beside him were the disciples of the Qingling Pavilion. One of them was holding a scroll, a pen, and ink, ready to record something. Who do you think will win? The old man asked. The disciple holding the pen said, as we all know, the divine charm is restrained by the golden sun body. I'm afraid Lu Li will lose. I second that. The old man smiled slightly, but his smile was somewhat strange. Yesterday, I heard a rumor that someone could make Lu Li win against Jin Yangshao. The disciples were very disdainful after hearing this. It's absolutely impossible. Who dares to talk nonsense like this? Haha, I'm afraid this person wants to play to the gallery and attract attention. The disciple holding the pen said. Did he say what method he would use? Eldest senior brother, are you taking these words seriously? The few disciples were speechless. No one would believe such preposterous words. The old man did not speak. He pondered for a moment, and the disciples behind him did not dare to make a sound. After a while he said, in fact, because of this matter, I specially asked the old master of the Lingxi Pavilion whether there are any flaws in the invincible golden sun body. The disciples were very speechless. It should be known that a message from the master of the Lingxi Pavilion, could not be exchanged with many people's lives. Their master actually went to the old master because of a word from a crazy student. This was simply ridiculous. The disciple holding the pen said, "Then, is there any invincible golden sun body?" The old man's eyes fell on the field, on the most outstanding genius of the Gold Sun sect in the past 100 years, who was shining with golden light. From a distance he looked like a ruby golden god. He was quite moved and said, "The old master's answer is no." The disciples could not help but whisper in an uproar. Then there was no doubt about it. The master of the Lingxi Pavilion had never been wrong. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. Naturally, it was that crazy student who was playing to the gallery. This person is really abominable. How dare he talk nonsense and cause master to have one less question? The old man did not move. The situation in the field became more and more intense. After another round of strong confrontation, Luli should have understood that her chances of winning were very small. However, at this moment, a strong light of confidence burst out from her eyes. Jiang Xiao, who had been looking at the distant mountains, glanced back coldly. Suddenly, a light flashed in his eyes. "Here it comes." Luli turned into a cloud of smoke, and her sword danced. Her body was like a willow, graceful as an immortal. Cloud-cutting sword technique. What the hell? Such a basic sword technique is used at this time. Will it have any lethality? If we don't give the opponent continuous pressure, Luli won't even have a strong attack. Bai Qianqian felt that something was wrong. She could not help but look at Jiang Xiao. She saw that his eyes were flashing. Luli would not go to him. She even heard such a bad idea. Suddenly, the sword technique changed. Immortal tears of mountains and rivers. Cloud moving 9 heavens. Heavenly wind pouring Sunday. What? Jin Yangshao originally thought that the opponent was going to use a soft sword. However, it suddenly changed again. It became incomparably spicy. He was a little caught off guard and was flustered for a while. Right here, Luli's cloud-like position happened to be behind Jin Yangshao. Although his body was dazzling, the back of his neck was exposed. "Lose for me," Luli roared angrily. The sharp sword tip pierced into the back of Jin Yangxiao's neck. Chi. Flames suddenly burned from the back of his neck. Ah! Jin Yangxiao screamed in pain and fell from the sky. Luli followed him and landed beside him. She could not hide the joy on her face. "You lost." Hua. Everyone was shocked. The unbreakable golden sun body's defense has been broken. The old man on the cliff and his disciples all widened their eyes in shock. How could this be? Bai Qianqian was also dumbfounded. Chapter 643. She must have found his weak point. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to break his defense. Wasn't it said that the golden sun invincible body was flawless? Was there no weak point? Everyone was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. How could this be? Was it Huiyin? Luli broke the golden sun invincible body. The whole palace was in an uproar. The old man on the cliff and his disciples were also dumbfounded. They looked at each other and couldn't say anything for a long time. They were really speechless. "Master, didn't you say that the old pavilion master was sure that the golden sun invincible body was flawless?" The old man was also dumbfounded and nodded blankly. The old housemaster of the Spirit Rhino Hall. The Spirit Rhino Hall was well informed of the happenings in the world. Over the past tens of thousands of years, they had never missed a single opportunity. This was the first time that something like this had happened. If the news were to spread like wildfire, the entire Immortal Martial Hall would be shaken. The old pavilion master did say so. It doesn't make sense. The old man didn't believe that the old pavilion master of the Lingxi Pavilion would make a mistake. But the reality in front of them really happened. Jin Yangshao was defeated. He was defeated by Luli's sword. The invincible golden sun invincible body was defeated. Luli broke Jin Yangxiao's weak point? Bai Qianqian was completely stunned. In her mind, she remembered Jiang Xiu's words. He had a way to let Luli defeat Jin Yangxiao. So Jiang Xiu knew where the weak point of the golden sun invincible body was? It's Huiyin. So Luli really went to find him last night. Then she had lost the bet. After the shock, Bai Qianqian found that the result was actually not good for her. After this battle, everyone in the world knew that the weak point of the Golden Sun invincible body was Huayin. Jin Yangxiao, who had fallen to the ground, looked at Lu Li, who was holding a sword to his neck in horror. His eyes and expression were more shocked than anyone else, as if even he didn't know that he had a weak point. She won, she won. After half a minute of dead silence, there was an outburst of cheers. Sister Lu Li won. Hua Zhijian's disciples as well as Lu Li's friends and suitors cheered. On the other hand, there was dead silence in the Gold Sun sect. Qin Qing also said, "This duel was really exciting, and the result was beyond everyone's expectations. Lu Li actually broke the invincible Golden Sunday. I thought the best result for Lu Li would be a draw. He actually won." Everyone in Tianqing school was surprised. Well, now the world knows that the weak point of the invincible Golden Sun body is the hidden fire. At this point, the foundation of the Golden Sun clan no longer exists. It can be foreseen that this clan will decline day by day. Only Jiang Xiu's expression remained indifferent. He gazed into the distance, as if he didn't care about what was happening here. "You lost." Lu Li put away the long sword and stood with his hands behind his back. His face was still cold, but he couldn't suppress the joy in his eyes. He was so happy that he almost jumped up and cheered. He searched for traces of Jiang Xiu in the crowd and saw him at the southwest corner. He was looking into the distance with an otherworldly look and was quite pretentious. However, Lu Li now looked a little unfathomable. He felt a sense of gratitude in his heart. He was also very curious. How did he know something that no one else in the world knew? This duel had thoroughly shocked everyone. Not only in Green Spirit Mountain, even the Spirit Rhino Pavilion in the distant Spirit Rhino Pavilion was in a mess. The Spirit Rhino Pavilion, which had never made a mistake, had smashed its reputation just because it had answered a question. After a disciple received the news, he hurried to the pavilion in the distant mountain. "Master, master." His tone was very anxious. The Lingxi Pavilion was a very solemn place. All the disciples were separated from the world and had a calm heart. It was rare for such a situation to occur. "What's the matter? Why are you so anxious?" In front of the bookshelf, an old man with white hair and a white beard was looking for information. He didn't even turn his head when he heard this. "Master, it's not good. We made a mistake in the Lingxi Pavilion." Made a mistake. These 3 words were a disaster for the Lingxi Pavilion. They had been guarding the pavilion for hundreds of thousands of years, and all the disciples protected these 3 words. The old pavilion master's expression suddenly changed, and he turned his head to look. "Master." The disciple was about to cry. "What's going on? Explain it clearly." The disciple held back his tears and said, "Previously, the scholar from Qingling Mountain asked if the Golden Sun invincible body had any weak points. Could it be?" The old pavilion master's eyes widened. The weak point of Jinyang Zhao's Golden Sun invincible body was pierced, and his defense was broken. He lost. What? The Golden Sun invincible body has no flaws. This cultivation method originated from a Golden Sun spiritual deity, more than 100,000 years ago. It was passed down for a while, but it was later buried in history. Later it was rediscovered and the Golden Sun sect was established more than 3,000 years ago. It has been more than 100,000 years, and no one has ever found a flaw. The records of our ancestors have also proved it countless times. Judging from the cultivation method itself, there is no reason for it to have a weak point like ordinary cultivation methods. But Master, Jinyang Xiao really lost. More than 100,000 years, how many generations of people had been guarding it? And in the end, it was destroyed by his own hands. The old pavilion master felt his legs go soft, and he collapsed to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of black blood. "Master!" The old pavilion master muttered, "Impossible, impossible." The disciple beside him had a gloomy expression. This was a huge blow to the Consonance Pavilion, and their reputation had been destroyed. "Master!" The disciples present all knelt down and lowered their heads, repenting their mistakes. The old pavilion master suddenly widened his eyes and said, The scholar said that there was someone in Qingling Mountain who said that there was a 100% way for Lu Li to defeat Jinyang Xiao. My consonance pavilion specializes in intelligence. How could we be inferior to a rumor monger? Investigate. You must investigate this matter clearly. This was the only thing the consonance pavilion could do. Yes. The duel had already ended, but the impact was still growing. Lu Li's reputation was constantly rising, and many people felt that they had underestimated her talent. She was far from what everyone thought. She had found a weak point in the Golden Sun invincible body that had never been broken before. Such talent, such talent. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was absolutely stunning. A genius. The crowd gradually dispersed, and Jiang Xiu followed behind the people from Tianqing School. The disciples were still discussing this duel, and they were very excited, as if they had won. Lu Li could be said to be the lover of the masses, and this kind of ending was what many fans wanted to see. Now that they had gotten what they wanted, and in such a stunning manner, it was enough for them to talk about for a year. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu's clothes were tugged. He looked back and saw that it was by Qianqian, but the girl's expression was not particularly good. She was happy that Lu Li had won, but she herself was in for a tragedy. She had lost the bet. "Why are you looking for me?" Bai Qianqian said with difficulty. "Were you the one who told Lu Li about the weakness of the Golden Sun invincible body?" Jiang Xiu said. "Since you know, why bother asking?" Bai Qianqian closed her eyes in despair. It was really like this. When Lu Li pierced Jinyang Zhao's Achilles heel, she knew that Lu Li must have gone to find Jiang Xiu last night. Then Jiang Xiu said, "You lost. From now on, you are my maid." Bai Qianqian wanted to cry. How could she lose like this? She had seen a ghost. But it was impossible for her, Bai Qianqian, to be someone's maid. However, she saw Jiang Xiu say indifferently, "I don't like to force people. Since you are not willing to be my maid, I will not force you. Our agreement is null and void." "Really?" Bai Qianqian was overjoyed. "You can't force a melon to be sweet." "Of course, I understand this principle. Why would I force others? Goodbye, Miss Bai." After saying this, Jiang Xiu was not interested in talking to her anymore. He quickly walked a few steps and caught up with the people from Tianqing School. Seeing Jiang Xiu leave, Bai Qianqian's happy mood gradually disappeared, and was replaced by a sense of loss. She felt that she might have missed something. Was it guilt? After all, he was her savior. On the same day there was a shocking piece of news. People from the Lingxi Pavilion had come. The Lingxi Pavilion had not appeared in the world for thousands of years. Although they had always existed, no one had seen them. It was the first time in thousands of years that they had made a move. The impact of this news was great. Lu Li broke the Golden Sun invincible body and pushed it to the peak. Chapter 644. The invincible Golden Sun body was broken because someone had announced that there was a way for Lu Li to defeat Jinyang Xiao. In the end, the invincible Golden Sun body was really broken. Because of this, the Lingxi Pavilion sent people to investigate this matter. Who exactly is it? How could they have such foresight? After Jiang Xiu and the others returned to their rented lodgings, they had been discussing how to create an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow with the last 3 fatal swords. From the various signs, it seemed that Lu Li had indeed known where the Golden Sun unbreakable body's Achilles heel was in advance. This was because before this, she had not searched for the opponent's Achilles heel. Could it be a reclusive senior? The invincible Golden Sun body had become famous with the rise of the Golden Sun sect, especially after the Golden Sun sect leader's cultivation had increased. He was only a great celestial immortal now. Once he entered the immortal king realm, many people thought that he would become an overlord. The invincible Golden Sun body could not be harmed by sword radiance of the same level. In other words, once it continued, even the sword technique of the strongest immortal king would not be able to hurt him. His attack power might not be strong, but he would be invincible. Such a person would naturally become an overlord, above most immortal kings. However, such a body cultivation art was seen through by someone else. Only a top-notch figure would be able to do so. Could it be Senior Hua Luiying? The disciples of the Tianqing school were no strangers to Hua Luiying, because she was a good friend of the previous sect leader, Jiang Luoxia. Moreover, she was praised by Qing Ling's literary critic as the most beautiful person in the world. It can't be, Qin Qing said. If Senior Hua Luiying found the weak spot of the invincible golden sun body, she would definitely come here. You must know that even the Lingxi Pavilion made a mistake. In other words, how could Hua Luiying, who always liked to be in the limelight, miss out on such a famous event? Moreover, Hua Luiying did not have such ability. Otherwise, her disciple would not have been forced into a corner. Then who could it be? But at this moment, a calm voice was heard. It's me. Everyone looked over. The one who spoke was Jiang Xiao. You. Everyone was stunned. Yao Zireo took the lead and started laughing uproariously. He shook his head helplessly and said, You? Take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror. Do you really think you're so important? There are so many capable people in the immortal martial continent, including immortal kings, yet none of them were able to find the flaw in the golden sun unbreakable body. Who do you think you are? That's right. Don't flatter yourself. Can you be more shameless? Jiang Xiu remained calm and collected. Qin Qing also felt a little helpless. She admitted that Jiang Xiu was talented, but that was all. After all, his cultivation level was too low, and his knowledge was limited. He had not even seen high-level sword spells or spells. How could he break such a powerful body-cultivating spell out of thin air? Junior brother Jiang, don't be presumptuous. At this moment, a pleasant female voice came from outside. A disciple of the Consonance Pavilion is here to pay a visit. What? Consonance Pavilion? All the Tianqing school disciples present were flattered. Hurry up and welcome her. They saw a figure standing at the gate of the courtyard. However, her whole body was wrapped in darkness, and they could not see her figure or her face clearly. It seemed that she did not intend to show her face. May I ask who is Jiang Xiu? Everyone looked at Jiang Xiu. A disciple of the Consonance Pavilion actually came to look for this trash? Jiang, junior brother Jiang, someone from the Consonance Pavilion came to look for you? Great master, this is our junior brother Jiang. Seeing that Jiang Xiu did not pay attention to the person from the Consonance Pavilion, and his attitude was still the same as before, Qin Qing helped to explain. The other party said, You are Jiang Xiu. Are you the one who told Liuli the method to defeat Jin Yangshao with a 100% guarantee? Jiang Xiu said. So what if I am? Wow. There was an uproar in the courtyard. Yao Zireo looked embarrassed, and his eyes were full of disbelief. It really was him. Qin Qing also looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. This, the golden sun unbreakable body that even celestial kings could not find a flaw in, was actually broken by him? The other party bowed deeply to Jiang Xiu. I sincerely ask for your guidance. May I ask how exactly did you find the weak point of the golden sun unbreakable body? Jiang Xiu smiled coldly. Doesn't the Consonance Pavilion know everything? Why ask me? The other party stopped. It was very difficult to get off the stage. The Consonance Pavilion that was said to know everything under the heavens had answered the wrong question, and now they still had to ask Jiang Xiu for guidance. Disciple of the Consonance Pavilion sincerely asks for guidance. She did not want the Consonance Pavilion to exist forever without knowing anything. Jiang Xiu said, You answer the question of your Consonance Pavilion, and the Consonance Pavilion also needs to answer a question of mine. The other party hesitated again. The Consonance Pavilion would not easily answer other people's questions. Some questions could easily destroy a sect, and it could even be an ancient secret. The impact was too great. Even if the Consonance Pavilion answered Green Spirit Mountain's questions, there were limits. If the impact was too great, the Consonance Pavilion would refuse to answer. If the question is within the scope of the Consonance Pavilion's ability to answer, then yes. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, It must be a question with no limitations. The Tianqing school disciples present whispered to each other. Yao Zireo's nose twitched, and he secretly mocked Jiang Xiu in his heart for not knowing how to appreciate favors. Qin Qing thought that Jiang Xiu must be asking about how to repair his life artifact. The other party muttered to herself, You can ask the question first. If you can answer it, then you can tell me the answer I want to know. Jiang Xiu said indifferently. It's your consonance pavilion that's begging to make a deal with me. You have no room to bargain. If you can't, then please leave. The other party fell silent. It was true that they wanted to know more about this matter. Otherwise, not only would the consonance pavilion ruin their reputation, but they would also ruin their reputation. When the other party fell silent, Jiang Xiu seemed to be indifferent. In fact, he was a bit confused. Because soon, with the consonance pavilion's power, they would soon find out the truth. To be able to ask the consonance pavilion a question that they did not have the authority to answer was too rare. Jiang Xiu had already turned around and started walking back. The other party anxiously stretched out his hand. It was an old and wrinkled hand. Wait, alright. The consonance pavilion agrees to answer a question that you do not have the authority to answer. Wow. The crowd couldn't help but burst into an uproar. They actually agreed. The consonance pavilion knew everything. This was a big deal. The elder of the Tianqing school next to him was the Peak Lord of Luoyan Peak, a great celestial immortal. This person was also supported by the Ji Daozong. Before this, Jiang Xiu had almost no impression of this person. He looked very excited. Jiang Xiu, you can't monopolize this opportunity. You must leave it to the sect. Let the sect master ask. He knew that the Ji Daozong had been trying to comprehend the heavenly mirror and become an immortal emperor for many years. The consonance pavilion must have the answer that the Ji Daozong wanted to know. Jiang Xiu's eyes swept over coldly. Why can't I monopolize it? This is my deal with the consonance pavilion. The other party didn't expect Jiang Xiu to actually dare to talk back to him. He was even more speechless. This was indeed unreasonable. Are you still a disciple of the Tianqing school? It's a waste to give this opportunity to you, Jiang Xiu said. Then let it be a waste. You. Jiang Xiu ignored him and walked towards the disciple of the consonance pavilion. If you want to know, come closer. The other party was very powerful. With Jiang Xiu's experience, he could see that he was an immortal king. Moreover, since he could make the decision to agree to Jiang Xiu's conditions, his position in the consonance pavilion must be very high. The old pavilion master was a man, and the person in front of him was a woman. He heard that the second pavilion master was a woman, so it should be her. After hearing Jiang Xiu's answer, the other party's eyes widened. Then they became ecstatic. I see. Everyone present was very curious. How did Jiang Xiu see through the golden sun unbreakable body? Yao Zireo couldn't help but ask. Jiang Xiu, why are you being so mysterious? How did you find out? Tell us so that everyone can know. Jiang Xiu said. The consonance pavilion used the question in exchange. What did you use in exchange? My life? Yao Zireo snorted coldly. Stepped on dog shit luck, and just happened to see the flaw in the golden sun unbreakable body. What's there to be proud of? Ignorant. The other party said. Since the matter has been answered, then I'll take my leave first. Since you're Jiang Xiu, then the consonance pavilion will be waiting for your question. After speaking, she bowed slightly to Jiang Xiu and slightly cupped her hands in farewell. Then her body swayed and disappeared on the spot. This escape technique caused the Tianqing school disciples present to exclaim in surprise. The consonance pavilion is indeed the consonance pavilion. Even a random disciple is so powerful. Chapter 645. After the people from the consonance pavilion left, the falling smoke peak's peak lord called out to Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu, you stay. Jiang Xiu said. If you want to talk about the problem, then don't waste your breath. I won't agree. The peak lord glared at him. Impudent. He was truly angered. He had never seen a disciple who didn't know how to appreciate favors, and a trash disciple at that. To be able to obtain a problem from the consonance pavilion without permission is of course precious, but your cultivation is too low. Using it would only be a waste. The sect can give you a corresponding revenge, such as a peak lord level cultivation method. Jiang Xiu said. The consonance pavilion's problem in exchange for a peak lord level cultivation method. Humph. The falling smoke peak lord's expression was a bit strange. He thought that for an ordinary disciple like Jiang Xiu to have a peak lord-level cultivation method, it would be a treasure to him. Those who treated others as fools were often the ones who were the real fools. What, you're still not satisfied? Could it be that you want an elder-level cultivation method? Jiang Xiu asked again. If you think that the Consonance Pavilion's problem can be exchanged for an elder-level cultivation method, then you can take that elder-level cultivation method to the Consonance Pavilion to exchange for a problem. These words were filled with ridicule. After saying this, he ignored him and turned to leave. That afternoon, Jiang Xiu received an invitation to a banquet from Lu Li. He thought that Lu Li should have come to find him to express her gratitude, so he arrived on time. But just as Jiang Xiu walked out of the courtyard, Yao Zirao secretly followed him. His eyes flashed with killing intent. Green Spirit Mountain was a place where good people mixed with bad people. If 1 or 2 people died, it would not be easy to investigate. Jiang Xiu did not walk quickly. In the afternoon, the streets of Green Spirit Mountain were filled with pedestrians. Even the giant chains between the peaks would occasionally have people flying over. It was not a good opportunity to make a move. However, Jiang Xiu didn't take the main road, and chose to take a small path instead. Yao Zirao coldly snorted and revealed a ferocious look in his eyes. He secretly mocked Jiang Xiu in his heart. You're courting death. During the true transmission battle, Jiang Xiu's cultivation was still passable. If he wanted to take him down, he would have to expend a bit of effort. But now his life-divine artifact was shattered. He was just an ordinary cripple. He knew that he could easily kill him in a single move without anyone noticing. But as luck would have it, when he was about to take action, a tall man passed by the alley. Since there was someone there, Yao Zirao decided not to take action for the time being. However, in the blink of an eye, his sight was blocked by the tall man. When he looked for Jiang Xiu again, he couldn't find any trace of Jiang Xiu. Inform them that Jiang Xiu is here to keep the appointment. The servant at the door said, Immortal Jiang has arrived. My family's princess has been waiting for a long time. Quickly invite him in. He humbly let Jiang Xiu walk in front while he followed behind. Along the way, they even stepped on a huge chain and passed through a group of ghosts. Finally, they saw a secluded small courtyard. The residence of a genius was really good. Jianggu is here. Fairy Lu Li stood at the entrance of the pavilion. She was already floating. White clouds floated around her, and the trees swayed. It was a scene of an immortal's holy land. She was even more extraordinary as a fairy from the heavens. Princess Lu Li invited me here. Could it be that she wants to apologize to you? Lu Li was stunned when she heard this. Her beautiful eyebrows straightened, and her eyes were filled with confusion. But then she remembered that Jiang Xiu had mocked her at that time that she would definitely lose. She even said that if she won, Jiang Xiu would have to apologize to her. With a pft, she laughed and rolled her eyes at him. If not for Jiang Xiu, she would actually lose. Is Jiang Gu purposely mocking Lu Li? She invited Jiang Xiu into the pavilion. She had prepared wine, and the two of them sat on the ground. It was quite natural. Lu Li has something she doesn't understand. Please enlighten me, Jiang Gu. Jiang Xiu raised his wine cup and downed it in one gulp. I know what you want to ask. Ask away. Lu Li smiled and said, Lu Li wants to know, the Golden Sun unbreakable body. There are so many immortal kings in the world. And even the Consonance Pavilion doesn't know about its weak point. How did Jiang Gu know about it? In the small alley, the tall man in front of Yao Zirao actually stopped moving. Yao Zirao could only move aside. But who would have thought that when he moved to the left, that person also moved to the left? When he moved to the right, that person also moved to the right, blocking the path completely. Are you purposely looking for trouble with me? Yes. Only then did Yao Zirao raise his head. When he clearly saw that person's appearance, he couldn't help but be shocked. It's you. You still dare to come out and cause trouble. If I were you, I would definitely find a hole to crawl into and bury myself. I would be a coward that never shows its head. The person's body was emitting a golden light. It was actually Jin Yangxiao, who had lost today. Move aside. Jin Yangxiao's tall body did not move. His eyes were indifferent as he said, If you want me to move aside, then leave your life behind. Ha ha ha. Yao Zireo laughed loudly. A piece of trash with a weak point dares to come out and shout. Do you think it's still the same as before? Now the entire world knows that your weak point is Huayin. Then let's see if you can stab me. Suddenly Jin Yangxiao rushed over. Yao Zireo's eyes turned cold. After all, he was a direct disciple of the Ji Dao sect. His strength was definitely not weak. Sword light instantly exploded, illuminating the entire alley. Jiang Xiu stood up from the pavilion and shook his wine cup. Who told you that the Golden Sun unbreakable body has a weak point? Luli was very puzzled. It was clearly Jiang Xiu who told her that the weak point of the Golden Sun unbreakable body was Huayin. Moreover, she had followed Jiang Xiu's words and truly used the defense of the Golden Sun unbreakable body to win the duel. Jiang Gu, could it be that you can't hold your liquor? Jiang Xiu laughed. In his mind, he thought of an incident that happened almost 3,000 years ago. At that time, he was also a little novice. He and a few people accidentally found an ancient site. Among them, there was a tall, strong, and honest young man. He did not speak much, but because Jiang Xiu looked at him highly, he formed a small group with Jiang Xiu. Of course, they found something in the ancient site. The ugliness of human nature erupted at this moment. They greedily killed, but in the end, they were all killed by Jiang Xiu alone. He only spared the life of one person. It was that tall, strong, and honest young man because he did not make a move to snatch it. Jiang Xiu asked him why he did not make a move. His answer was that he could not snatch it, and he did not want to snatch it. Jiang Xiu said that if he did not snatch it, he would kill him to silence him. But in the end, Jiang Xiu did not kill him. In the ancient site, Jiang Xiu found an excellent collection of body cultivation formula. Although the spiritual cultivation formula tempted him, and he almost wanted to change his cultivation, he gave up the idea because it was not suitable for him. He threw the body cultivation formula to the tall, strong, and honest young man. He was the current head of the Gold Sun sect, Jinyang Daru. In the alley, Yao Zireo's ferocious and complacent laughter came. Go to hell, you four-armed idiot. You don't even know how to protect your weak point. Oh, right, you don't have this habit. The long sword pierced the Huayin on the back of his neck. Jinyang Zhao's eyes were as white as day, with a trace of contempt. Boom. Yao Zireo didn't understand until he died. He had clearly stabbed Jin Yangxiao's vital point, but why wasn't Jin Yangxiao affected at all? He fell into a pool of blood and vomited blood. He watched as Jin Yangxiao's tall figure gradually faded away, and he also died. Not strong enough to drink? Jiang Xiu's eyes revealed some arrogance. Am I drunk or are you drunk? Since Jiang Gu is unwilling to say, Liuli will not ask. No matter what, Jiang Gu did Liuli a great favor. If you need help in the future, just ask. At this moment at the end of the chain, the servant who sent Jiang Xiu came back and said, reporting to Princess, Qiuxin, Dongwu, and by Qianqian a few guests are here. Should we announce their arrival? Liuli's clear eyes glanced at Jiang Xiu. She thought that Jiang Xiu was indeed not qualified to be in the same place as these young talents. However, since he helped her, she would give him a hand and let him enter the circle. It would also raise his status. It was a small repayment. Go ahead. She turned around and said to Jiang Xiu with a smile. We are all friends and Qianqian knows you. She shouldn't be unfamiliar with you, right? Jiang Xiu gently swirled his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. As the host, not long after, they saw a group of people appear on the other side of the cliff. Jiang Xiu vaguely remembered that he also had days like this in the past. He called his friends on Qingling Mountain. However, at that time they did not give in. They admired each other, but each wanted to suppress the other. When Jiang Xiu first entered this group, he was the weakest. However, after the Qingling leaderboard was announced, he soared to the sky. Chapter 646. Seeing that Azurite had a guest, and that it was an unfamiliar man who was meeting her alone, these people felt very surprised. They couldn't help but size up Jiang Xiu curiously. Who was this person that could actually meet Azurite alone in such a quiet place? Jiang Xiu was also sizing up this group of people, secretly guessing in his heart. This group of people was the most outstanding disciple of this generation, but compared to the group of people in the past, Their strength was really lacking by quite a bit. Especially after Jiang Luoxiao's rise, these people also stimulated even more powerful potential and sped up the pace of catching up to him. As a result, a large number of influential people back then were created. Today, whether it was Hua Luiying or others, they would definitely be at the top. Jiang Xiu didn't have any feelings for these little brats. He couldn't find a trace of appreciation for them. Let me introduce you all. Tianqing School's Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu had never introduced himself to Azurite, but Azurite must have researched his origins. He was here, and if she wanted to know, she just had to ask around a little to find out. Jiang Xiu, this name sounds a little familiar, said one of the extraordinarily handsome men. Oh, I remember. But you. Everyone thought that someone who could see through the golden sun unbreakable body would definitely be someone with unparalleled wisdom and vision. They didn't expect him to be a god elementalist, and a god elementalist whose cultivation was crippled. The feeling he gave them was a little demonic. When a person had flaws in certain areas, his talents in other areas would be highlighted, and he would have the ability to think beyond the average person. To put it simply, he was abnormal. But many people looked down on Jiang Xiu. The one who spoke just now was called Qiuxin, and the one called Dongwu. They were extremely disdainful of Jiang Xiu. There's not many people left in Tianqing School. If it weren't for the fact that they have some foundation, I'm afraid they wouldn't be considered a major sect. Not only did the people present look down on Jiang Xiu, they even slandered Tianqing School as well. Ever since Jiang Xiu, Tianqing School's Taoist sects had been squeezing the resources of their disciples for their own selfish desires. To a large extent, this had delayed the development of their disciples. As a result, the new generation of Tianqing School was indeed going downhill, and their competitiveness had plummeted. However, these nameless people would never slander them. Jiang Xiu's eyes were slightly cold. You are slandering Tianqing School. I think even your master doesn't dare to say anything bad about Tianqing School. Dong Wu's expression changed. This man's facial features were chiseled, and he had some stubble. His facial muscles twitched, and his eyes were spitting fire. The Celestial sect was only a mid-sized sect, far inferior to the Celestial sect. The 13 immortal kings of the Celestial sect weren't fake. Although a few of them had died, it was still not something a mid-sized sect could compare with. Lu Li and Bai Qianqian heard this and knew that something was wrong. Lu Li had a deep impression of this. Jiang Xiu was a humble person, and he was even more so not a humble person. This person was extremely strong in his bones. It could even be said that he was a troublemaker. The more you fought with him, the more motivated he became. The two women hurriedly changed the topic. Qianqian, someone challenged you. Or do you have plans to challenge anyone? Not at the moment. I'll get used to it when I get here. Bai Qianqian said. What about you? Jin Yangxiao's victory shook the world, but I don't know why the Azure Spirit Leaderboard hasn't announced your name yet. What are they waiting for? Lu Li said. The next match is set. Sword Spirit Pavilion's Zhangsun Yijiang. He had just finished one match, and was about to start the second one. It looked like he was riding on the momentum of defeating Jin Yangxiao, and pushing his reputation even higher. Then there would be no reason for the Azure Spirit Leaderboard to not announce his name. Sword Spirit Pavilion. That's a large sect. Or Zhangsun Yijiang. Everyone present was in an uproar. Humph. Dong Wu snorted coldly. It looked as if he was letting Jiang Xiu off the hook and disdained to argue with him. However, in his heart he was really angry. A piece of trash dared to be so arrogant just because he was a disciple of a large sect. He felt even more indignant for himself. Why didn't he enter a large sect in the first place? Qiu Xian secretly gave him a look, indicating for him to calm down. Zhangsun Yijiang Jiang Xiu is a sword spirit. He's not easy to deal with. Lu Li said. No, it was the other party who initiated it. Only then did everyone understand that it wasn't Lu Li who initiated it. Everyone thought that she wanted to win and chase after him. It turned out that the other party wanted to use him as a stepping stone. Fighting for the Azure Spirit Leaderboard was like this. Whoever had the biggest reputation would become the target of everyone. Unless you had extraordinary strength and cut through all obstacles, the Azure Spirit Leaderboard would announce your name. In the past, Jiang Luoxia fought for more than 100 matches. In the last match, he single-handedly defeated 3 top geniuses. From then on, the world was shocked and the Azure Spirit Leaderboard was announced. His master had said, "Cleanse the heavens 9 times and establish 1,000 years of legacy." Luli was still far from that. Then how confident is Luli this time? Everyone was very curious. Sword Spirit Pavilion was a strange large sect. The reason why it was strange was because it was too far away from the core 9 regions of immortal martial. All the way to the far east, that place was occupied by spirits. It was very barren. Although they were sword immortals, they mainly cultivated sword spirits. Everyone didn't know much about this sect. Luli smiled faintly and didn't answer. However, she glanced at Jiang Xiu. She was very curious about what Jiang Xiu would think of this. Jiang Xiu only smiled faintly. However, the confidence in his smile moved Luli. It gave Luli the feeling that Jiang Xiu had a way to deal with Zhang Sunyi Jiang. However, she didn't directly ask. Instead, she waited for the crowd to disperse. She left Jiang Xiu behind. "Princess Luli, it's already late. You left me alone. Do you have some thoughts about me?" Jiang Xiu's tone was neither hurried nor slow. However, in the spring season, a man and a woman alone in the night breeze was really a bit impetuous. And very impetuous. Luli secretly rolled her eyes at him. She straightened her posture and said, "Today, I didn't have enough fun chatting with Jiang Ge. We were disturbed by other friends." "Oh, the night is long. Then let's chat slowly." Jiang Xiu's body exuded a bit of laziness. Luli's first impression of Jiang Xiu wasn't very good. However, when he helped her during her most difficult time, all her impressions of him changed. At this moment, Jiang Xiu gave her a mysterious feeling. She was already a bit curious about Jiang Xiu. Curiosity killed the cat. Everyone says that a sword spirit stands with a sword and a spirit. When facing an enemy, they almost always have the advantage in a 2-on-1 battle. Among sword immortals of the same level, their advantage is just like the invincible golden sundae. I would like to hear Jiang Ji's evaluation of a sword spirit. Jiang Xiu said, "You want to ask me if I have a way to deal with a sword spirit? Then, brother Jiang, do you have the confidence to win again?" Jiang Xiu smiled and said, "Of course." Luli's eyes lit up. There really was a way. Her gaze became hot as she looked at Jiang Xiu's face. She felt that Jiang Xiu was even more incredible. "Please enlighten me." Jiang Xiu asked for a brush and ink from Luli and wrote a talisman on it. Luli looked at it in confusion. She had never seen the words on this talisman before. She had never seen it before and it looked very complicated. Naturally, she thought it was profound. In fact, it was indeed profound. Jiang Xiu wrote the talisman from the Tianqing school with the Tianqing talisman, which contained endless heavenly Tao. When he mentioned the Sword Spirit Pavilion just now, Jiang Xiu had already tested it in his mind. It was feasible. He will use the Sword Spirit, and you will use the talisman. Victory. Luli was a little skeptical. Although the talismans in the world had all kinds of strange effects, they all required powerful magic power, and the corresponding secret method as a foundation. She had never heard of a talisman that could defeat an opponent. It was a bit of a fantasy. Is this talisman really so powerful? It can defeat the sword spirit in one move? Jiang Xiu stood up and seemed to be about to leave. The ultimate goal of cultivating the sword spirit was the same as cultivating the sword. If one wanted to condense a sword soul, cultivating the sword spirit could be said to be a shortcut. However, the further one progressed, the harder it would be to control the sword spirit. Every sword spirit cultivator would have some kind of problem. When did I say that I could defeat the sword spirit? I only said that I could give you a 100% chance of winning. Luli was also a very intelligent person. However, in front of Jiang Xiu, she always felt that her brain was not enough. She became a fool. He could even defeat the invincible golden sundae. She believed that Jiang Xiu was telling the truth. "Jiang Ge, Luli is very curious. Why are you helping me?" Jiang Xiu had already turned and walked out of the pavilion. Although the wind on the mountain was very light, Lian Feng's chain was submerged in the dark clouds. However, he seemed to be able to see the road under his feet. He walked all the way, neither fast nor slow. I can't bear to see the same tragedy befall you. What? Luli was confused. Chapter 647. Watching Jiang Xiu leave, Azurite also left the pavilion and returned to her residence. An old servant walked over and waited for her orders. Have you investigated Jiang Xiu thoroughly? The old servant said. Princess, this person does have some background. He first appeared in the Garan dynasty. Tianqing school didn't have any outstanding geniuses among the younger generation, so they searched everywhere for geniuses. Jiang Xiu was discovered in Garan. Azurite listened quietly. This person is a genius and somewhat unpredictable. He is very talented, but he chose the path of God cultivation. However, this didn't affect him from entering Tianqing school. On the contrary, he began to show his talent not long after he entered the sect. Back then, he entered the inner sect from the outer sect, and then became a true disciple from the inner sect. His speed is unprecedented. Hearing this, Azurite's clear eyes flashed with surprise. Tianqing school was a large sect. Even in medium-sized sects, it was rare to hear of a genius disciple who could become a true disciple from the outer sect in such a short time. His talent was no longer just a little shocking. As expected, Jiang Xiu was not an ordinary person, just as she thought. But something happened. It seems he offended the Taihua sect. After all, she was an outsider and could only hear the general idea. The Taihua sect didn't do anything themselves, but spent money to hire the Hall of Reincarnation to kill him. Azurite frowned. The Hall of Reincarnation was quite famous, but in the eyes of the sect disciples, it was still a mediocre assassination organization. The Hall of Reincarnation dared to kill a disciple of Tianqing school? The old servant said. At first, the Tianqing school didn't seem to care. However, the Tianqing school's elders still made a move. However, they were a step too late. His life-bound ritual implement was already broken. Although it wasn't the whole story, it was enough to understand Jiang Xiu's past. What a pity. Azurite sighed. Indeed. If his life-bound ritual implement wasn't broken, this old servant reckons that he might not be on par with the princess. He could still be considered a genius. Azurite said. No, if he wasn't injured, he would be stronger than all of us. He tightened his grip on the talisman Jiang Xiu had given him. Jiang Xiu returned to the courtyard. The courtyard was noisy. Other than the people from Tianqing school, there were many other people. Tianqing saw Jiang Xiu and heaved a sigh of relief. You are finally back. Jiang Xiu asked, what's wrong? Tianqing's face was a little pale. She looked a little off. Yao Zireo was killed. I thought you were also. It's good that you're back. No wonder there was a group of people gathered around. They were looking at the corpse. Jiang Xiu walked straight back. Of course he knew who killed Yao Zireo. It was Jin Yangxiao. If not for Jiang Luoxia's order, Jin Yangxiao would not have killed Yao Zireo. Suddenly a stern voice asked, where have you been? It was the peak master of the Rockfall Peak, Su Qingquan. He was an elder and also the person with the highest position here. Of course, he had the responsibility to investigate Yao Zireo's death. What? Jiang Xiu stopped. Could it be that Peak Master thinks I killed Yao Zireo? He had indeed thought so. Others did not know, but he knew that Yao Zireo had followed Jiang Xiu out. As for what he wanted to do, he knew. However, Jiang Xiu was a good-for-nothing. It was impossible for him to kill Yao Zireo. But Jiang Xiu was still the biggest suspect. Humph, Su Qingquan said. What kind of attitude is this? Now that senior brother is dead, is this your attitude? Jiang Xiu said. Then what attitude should I have? Should I cry? He is not my son. Is it worth it? Should I feel sad? I have only spoken a few words to him. We are not friends at all. Why should I feel sad for him? You, as senior brother, you should at least care about him. Jiang Xiu said. There are hundreds of thousands of people in Tianqing school. Many of them do not know each other. Why should you put on an act? It is disgusting to put on an act. There were still faint traces of tears on Su Qingquan's face. He had probably wiped his tears in front of others. Now Jiang Xiu had exposed his hypocrisy in front of everyone. Okay, Su Qingquan said. I don't blame you for being indifferent. Then tell me clearly, where did you go just now? I must investigate Yao Zireo's death. He was the sect master's direct disciple. Jiang Xiu said. I went to a banquet. Su Qingquan asked. Where did you go to the banquet? Jiang Xiu said. At Princess Glaze's place from noon until just now. If you don't believe me, you can go and confront Princess Glaze. Oh right, there was also Bai Qianqian, Qiu Xian, Dongwu. These are all distinguished guests. They can all testify for me. Su Qingquan also believed that it was not Jiang Xiu who did it. He did not have the strength to do so. But in the end, it was because Yao Zireo was going to Jiang Xiu that he was killed. Qing, go to Princess Glaze's place and ask clearly about the time. Qing looked at Jiang Xiu. She felt that Jiang Xiu would not lie, and it was even more impossible for him to kill Yao Zireo. However, she was not as rebellious as Jiang Xiu, who dared to go against the Peak Master. Since the Peak Master had said so, she could only do as she was told. Jiang Xiu, on the other hand, minded his own business and returned to his residence. In Green Spirit Mountain, such murders often occurred. The death of a nameless Tianqing school disciple would of course not cause much of a stir. After Qing went to inquire and confirm, Su Qingquan was also helpless. The other party had the time to testify. With the arrival of Glaze's second duel, everyone's attention was once again drawn to the contest for the Green Spirit ranking. On this day, there was also a sea of people going to watch this duel. Jiang Xiu, however, was not interested in it. He had not even watched until now. From time to time, waves of commotion could be heard from all directions. Who won? Many servants were concerned about the battle situation. Zhang Sunyijiang's sword spirit went crazy. It suddenly lost control, and actually wanted to kill Zhang Sunyijiang. Jiang Xiu heard everything clearly in the room. How could this be? How could a sword spirit kill its own master? At this moment, the whole palace was in an uproar. Zhang Sunyijiang, who was dressed in green, had a drastic change in expression. His red sword spirit wanted to kill him, as if it had gone crazy. His throat was almost pierced, but even though he reacted quickly, a skull pierced his shoulder. The sudden change not only shocked the people in the field, but also Zhang Sunyijiang and Glaze. She finally understood the meaning of Jiang Xiu's words. This talisman indeed would not defeat the sword spirit, but it would make Zhang Sunyijiang's sword spirit lose control. The consequence of losing control was a backlash. Once the sword spirit showed signs of backlash, was there a need to compete? It was no wonder that Jiang Xiu said that he would definitely win. While Zhang Sunyijiang was busy dealing with his sword spirit, Glaze took the opportunity to send his sword flying. The red sword spirit in the sky also disappeared. Zhang Sunyijiang fell heavily to the ground. He saw a white flash in front of him and Glaze's sword was already on his neck. You lost. Zhang Sunyijiang was a little unconvinced at first, but he helplessly lowered his head. A sword spirit was a double-edged sword. Many sword spirit cultivators would later encounter the problem of their sword spirit losing control. Since this was a weakness, he could not blame the other party for taking advantage of it. This weakness could be exploited by anyone. I lost. Glaze's face was filled with joy. She won again. She won by using Jiang Xiu's method. In addition to feeling excited, she was even more grateful and curious about Jiang Xiu. Who exactly was he? He could see through the golden sun unbreakable body that no one had ever broken before. He could even make the sword spirit lose control and backfire. These were not things that ordinary people could do. Glaze won. She won. Fellow Taoists rushed over. Glaze looked around the crowd for Jiang Xiu, but she did not see him. Was he so confident that she would definitely win? He didn't even come. The more Glaze thought about it, the more she felt that this person was as intelligent as a demon. His methods were heaven-defying. One had to know that even her master and the immortal kings could not do it, but he did it so easily. Can you tell me how you did it? Glaze only smiled faintly. To be honest, she also wanted to know. She decided to have a good talk with Jiang Xiu. She wanted to know why Jiang Xiu was helping her like this. Glaze had won 2 matches in a row, and her opponent was so strong. When the news reached Hua Zhejian, her master Hua Luiying was overjoyed and decided to personally go to Qingling Mountain. Hua Luiying thought that Qingling Mountain was going to announce Glaze's name. As her master, she naturally had to be there to support her disciple. But she did not know what she had been doing before. Now that her disciple had made a name for herself, she was preparing to go. Chapter 648. When the news of Hua Luiying's visit to Qingling Mountain came, it pushed Lu Li's reputation to an unparalleled level. Everyone thought that Lu Li's fiery popularity and innate talent was enough to qualify her for a title. These 2 days, everyone was discussing this new generation's #1 beauty, the new generation's pinnacle genius, who was both talented and beautiful. Many people compared her to her master, Hua Luiying. Many people even thought that her talent and reputation had surpassed Hua Luiying's at the same time. Back then, Hua Luiying's talent was indeed very high, but the era she was in was ruled by Jiang Luoxia. Everyone's radiance was overshadowed by Jiang Luoxia. Therefore, Hua Luiying was only known for her beauty back then. Now that she had become a celestial king and a sect leader, most people's impression of her was still because of her beauty. Lu Li was different. Aside from her beauty, the talent she displayed now was above that of most male geniuses. Even the radiance of her talent surpassed the attention paid to her beauty. She was only seen once in 1,000 years. Is she coming? Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a cold light. He stood on the roof of the courtyard and looked into the distance. Your personality hasn't changed at all after so many years. Hua Luiying had interacted with him many times. Although Hua Luiying had always tried her best to have a good relationship with Jiang Luoxia, Jiang Xiu wasn't blind. He could see her attitude in dealing with people. She made friends with those who were stronger. Of course, this was understandable. It was human nature to cling to the strong, but she was even more so. She also had a habit that could never be changed. She was used to others paying attention to her. She liked to be in the limelight and naturally liked other people's admiring gazes. Once a disciple became famous, she naturally wanted to ride on the wave of popularity. Sir, there's a guest outside. The inn's servant came out of the courtyard and saw Jiang Xiu standing on the roof with his hands behind his back. He raised his head and shouted, "A guest?" The servant was a little excited. "It's Princess Lu Li." It was no wonder that the manservant was so happy. The fact that she was one of the top 10 beauties was attractive enough. Now she was even more popular. To him, Lu Li was like a fairy in the sky. She was too high to reach. It was really a blessing to be able to see her and talk to her. Jiang Xiu said, "Please." When Lu Li walked in and saw Jiang Xiu standing so high, she smiled faintly and flew up to Jiang Xiu. However, she was still 1 meter and 2 meters away from him. Jiang Gu is in such a good mood. He's actually enjoying the scenery here. Jiang Xiu wasn't looking at the scenery. He was looking at his mood. To be more precise, he was waiting for someone. Did Lioli come to tell me that you've won? Lapis Lazuli said. Jiang Ji's plans are flawless and he has astonishing talent. Why would he need Lapis Lazuli to tell him? Moreover, this matter has probably spread far and wide. Jiang Gu won't have not received the news. Jiang Xiu said. Then he's here to thank me. Lu Li said with a smile. I'm here to express my gratitude, but there is another important thing that I want to ask Jiang Gu about. May I ask? Lu Li looked at Jiang Xiu's side profile. Actually, as a woman, she had very sharp intuition. She could tell at first glance whether a man had any ulterior motives towards her. The way Jiang Xiu looked at her made her feel very strange. She didn't know if it was because of his cold nature or some other reason. She couldn't see the burning desire in other men's eyes. From this, she could conclude that Jiang Xiu didn't have any interest in her, and wasn't after her beauty. Other than this, she didn't feel that there was anything else that the other party needed. Why is Jiang Gu helping me like this? Jiang Xiu said. If I say that I'm bored, you probably won't believe me, right? Lu Li pursed her lips and smiled. It was rare for Jiang Xiu to joke. Actually, I don't wish for a tragedy to happen to you. Tragedy. Lu Li didn't understand. Jiang Xiu said, Huazhaijin sect master Hua Luiying has taken in countless disciples. Among them, there is no lack of beautiful women like Lu Li. Their talents aren't below Huazhaijin sect master. Lu Li said. Indeed, before me, Shizuan had several outstanding disciples. Jiang Xiu said. Then where are they now? Lu Li was stunned. She had only heard of them before but had never seen them. Jiang Xiu said. According to what I know, there was one called Hua Shui. She was also beautiful and was once ranked as one of the top 10 beauties in Qingling. After that, there was another with outstanding talents. She was special like you with a mysterious body. She was called Yi Tongxi. She had known Hua Luiying for more than 2,000 years. She had taken in 4 or 5 outstanding disciples. The Yi Tongxi mentioned above was a beauty that she sent to Jiang Xiu. After being rejected by Jiang Xiu, she stayed by her side to guide her. Of course, she became a talent later on. Lu Li said. These senior sisters are all no longer here. Why did Jiang Ge mention that senior sister Hua Shui was killed in the barren wasteland? As for senior sister Yi Tongxi, she ran away with a man. My Shizuan was so angry that she was bedridden. Jiang Xiu smiled coldly. Senior sister Hua Shui wasn't killed by others. She was killed by your Shizuan. Your senior sister Yi Tongxi also didn't run away with a man. She was also killed by your Shizuan. And you will be the next. Lu Li smiled at first, thinking that Jiang Xiu was joking. However, her smile gradually disappeared and her eyes widened. No, that's impossible. Jiang Ge, you can't joke about this. Why would my Shizuan kill her favorite disciple? There's no reason at all. Jiang Xiu said indifferently. Reason? Isn't that simple? It's because you're too outstanding. Not only did you steal her limelight, you might even catch up to her in the future, threaten her position, or even replace her. Hua Luiying was an extremely arrogant and self-abased person. She actually didn't have confidence in herself, so when she saw a disciple who might surpass her, she would strangle her in the cradle. Jiang Ge, I'm very grateful for your help, but please don't talk nonsense. Lu Li's eyes were very cold. She respected her Shizuan the most. If Jiang Xiu hadn't helped her before, she definitely wouldn't have allowed anyone to slander her Shizuan. Jiang Xiu said, Follow me. Lu Li first asked, Where are we going? Then she said in a fit of pique, I'm not going. However, Jiang Xiu had already jumped off the roof and walked outside. Lu Li frowned, but could only jump off the roof and follow her footsteps. Jiang Xiu's words had a huge impact on her. She didn't believe it at all, but her heart was thumping. She wanted to verify that Jiang Xiu's speculation was wrong. Where are we going? At this time the sun was about to set. There were very few people on the streets, but there were still quite a few. Lu Li was like a celebrity now. So many people were looking at her. She could only chase after Jiang Xiu, but Jiang Xiu was walking on a small path. It seemed like he knew the roads here quite well. After walking for a long time, it seemed like they were about to leave Green Spirit Mountain. The sky had already darkened. Jiang Xiu entered a small temple. The temple was very old, with broken windows and tiles. As soon as he walked in, the floor was covered in rubble. In front of him was a statue of a deity covered in cobwebs. However, those who had some knowledge in the immortal martial continent knew that this was the place where the Pavilion of Consonants accepted questions. What are you doing in the Pavilion of Consonants? Jiang Xiu said, The Pavilion of Consonants owes me a question. Didn't you want to know if it's true or not? You can ask now. Lu Li's expression changed greatly. When she saw this temple, she knew that this was the Pavilion of Consonants, a place where one could learn about the world. Burn a stalk of incense and ask the question. The Pavilion of Consonants will tell you the answer from a distance. Lu Li's expression became more and more unsightly. The Pavilion of Consonants had never made a mistake, never. The only time they made a mistake was when they discovered this mysterious man in front of her. However, that was pardonable because it was not discovered in the first place. It was not a common problem. Ask away. Lu Li's face turned pale as her heart turned cold. Jiang Xiu dared to bring her to the Pavilion of Consonants to ask her questions. This meant that he was almost certain of what he knew. She was very afraid. She was really afraid that her own master was a pervert, an executioner. Maybe I'm wrong. Luli gritted her teeth. She placed an incense stick into the worn-out incense burner. Not long after, the incense rose in spirals. However, it was very strange. After the incense stick twisted, it did not dissipate. Instead, it disappeared, as if it had entered another dimension. Jiang Xiao, what questions do you have? Ask away. This was the voice of the second pavilion master. Jiang Xiao said, I'll give this opportunity to Luli beside me. Luli, ask away. Luli's breathing became heavy. She clenched her fists and took a step forward. However, she could not speak for a long time. The entire temple became very quiet. Only her increasingly anxious voice could be heard. She did not believe that the master who cared for her so much was this kind of person. She asked, Who killed Hua Shui of Huazhijian? Wait a moment. The pavilion of consonants immediately began to search for information. Not long after, the answer almost defeated Luli on the spot. Hua Luiying. Then what about Yi Tongxi? Who killed her? Wait a moment. The one who killed Yi Tongxi was Hua Luiying. Luli felt the world spin. She still vaguely remembered Yi Tongxi. At that time, she was still a child. In her memory, Shiji was the most beautiful and gentle child in the world. Jiang Xiao also remembered that the girl's gentleness was in her bones. She had a kind of natural sadness that was very attractive. She was definitely a human character. Then how did Dongwan die? Hua Luiying killed her. What about Lu Meinyang? Hua Luiying, Hua Luiying, Hua Luiying. This voice reverberated in Luli's ears. She felt as if her entire world had collapsed. Jiang Xiao, I only have one question. The reason why I've answered you so much is because your questions can be summed up into one question. Was Hua Luiying the one who killed Hua Zhijian's outstanding female disciple? Boom. Luli could not hold on any longer. Her heart collapsed. Chapter 649. Luli was completely dazed, her mind completely blank. She could only feel a boundless fear enveloping her, as if a hand was tightly choking her neck, making it hard for her to breathe. Luli, are you all right? Luli panted heavily, as if she was about to suffocate. Luli, she could no longer stand and fell to the ground. It was too terrifying. She thought of how her master killed her senior sisters, and all the hairs on her body stood on end. No, it's impossible. Luli didn't dare to believe it, and didn't want to believe it. But reality was so cruel. She had met such a master, and she would be her next target. Because her master couldn't bear to see her living well, she would kill her and destroy her? My master wouldn't do that. Tears fell from her eyes. Jiang Xiao's words could be refuted, but the consonants pavilion would never be wrong. Moreover, the truth of one person's death could be wrong, but it was impossible for so many people to be wrong. And it was understandable that one or two senior sisters would go missing, but it was too strange that so many of them went missing in different eras. In the sect, the second pavilion master said, Jiang Xiao, your question has been used. Jiang Xiao said, Yes, thank you for the trouble. After saying that, the strange voice in the temple disappeared. A certain person far away on the Consonance Mountain, and a group of disciples behind her who were searching for information, said, This Jiang Xiao is really a smart person. Our Consonance Pavilion's reputation was almost destroyed in his hands. The second pavilion master said, In reality, it was us who panicked, and our thinking was limited. We only thought that Jin Yangzhao's defeat was due to the Jinyang indestructible body being broken, but we didn't think that Jin Yangzhao was deliberately faking his defeat. The disciple said helplessly, Yes, no one thought of it. But what is the relationship between this Jiang Xiao and Jin Yangzhao? To be able to make Jin Yangzhao fake his defeat on such an important ranking that affects his future. The second pavilion master said, How's the investigation on Jiang Xiao's matter going? I did. This person seemed to have jumped out of a crack in the ground. He first appeared in a mountain range in the spiritual state. It is said that he is a member of the Jialanjiang family, and later entered Tianqing school. He is very young, only in his 20s. The second pavilion master was shocked. Only in his 20s? Well, in theory, Jiang Xiu doesn't have the ability to go to the Gold Sun sect. In the past 20 years, no one from the Gold Sun sect has come to the spiritual state. After he entered the Tianxing school, he had no contact with the Gold Sun sect. But it's strange that Jin Yangshao made such a big sacrifice to put on this show with him. The second pavilion master frowned. No interaction? The matter was very strange. The Azure Spirit ranking was a matter of great importance to any new genius. It was an excellent opportunity to make a name for oneself. If not for their unusual relationship, Jin Yangshao would not have made such a great sacrifice. But the problem was that the Consonance Pavilion couldn't find the reason. From the looks of it, this matter should be related to Liuli and Hua Luiying. Otherwise, Jiang Xiu wouldn't have used up such a precious opportunity to ask the Consonance Pavilion a question with full permission. If an ordinary person could get a question with full permission from the Consonance Pavilion, they would definitely ask about how to become an immortal emperor, how to create the most powerful spiritual artifacts, or how to improve their strength, satisfy their desires, and satisfy their ambitions. They all wanted to become someone who could dominate a region. But Jiang Xiu's choice was very strange. The disciples on the side thought the same. Start with the question Jiang Xiu raised and investigate it as soon as possible. Yes. The surrounding disciples all saluted. One of them stood up straight and said, "Second Pavilion Master, is it possible that Jiang Xiu wants to pursue Liuli and doesn't want anything to happen to her?" Second Pavilion Master said, "It's more likely that Jiang Xiu already knew that Hua Luiying was the one who killed Hua Luiying. My intuition tells me that he went after Hua Luiying." In the ruined temple, Jiang Xiu looked at the dazed Liuli. He sympathized with this little girl. It was a disaster for her to have such a master. Master was a more respectable title than a master. It was a master, a father, and a master. The relationship was even more than that of a father and daughter. On Earth, if a girl met such a father who killed all her sisters, this girl would definitely go crazy and break down. At this moment, Liuli was in such a situation. "Jiangge, what should we do with Liuli? Teach Liuli. You're so smart. You'll definitely be able to think of a way." But what Liuli didn't expect was that Jiang Xiu's gaze was fixed on her. After a long time, he shook his head. "Your master Hua Luiying is an immortal king. Even if I were 100 times smarter, I wouldn't be able to think of a way for you to kill her." The hope in Liuli's eyes dimmed. "Even you can't think of a way?" From this reaction, it could be seen that Liuli already had a certain degree of dependence on Jiang Xiu. Originally, it wasn't so strong. But when she was in despair, this kind of dependence would be magnified. Jiang Xiu shook his head. "Let's go back and talk about it. Originally, I didn't want to talk about this. But when I heard that your master is coming tomorrow, I was worried that something would happen to you, so..." Liuli's entire body trembled. Her face was frighteningly pale. She raised her head and looked at Jiang Xiu. Her gaze was no longer as empty as before. It was even more devoid of confidence. There was only a pair of frightened eyes. How did you know that my senior sister was killed by my master?" Jiang Xiu said, "Lingxi Pavilion. Someone was asking about it. I happened to pass by and heard it." Liuli asked, "This is the reason why you helped me?" Jiang Xiu said, "When I saw you, I really didn't want the tragedy to happen to you. So I hastily intervened in your matter." Liuli's eyes were filled with tears. "You did it because you pitied me?" Jiang Xiu sighed. "It's a pity. Let's put it this way. Then help me to the end. Help me survive." Facing Liuli's frightened and helpless eyes, Jiang Xiu's heart was slightly touched. How cruel and perverted her master was to kill her own disciple, because she was jealous of her own talent. "Okay, I'll help you." Liuli was overjoyed. "You really have a way?" Jiang Xiu nodded solemnly. "Yes, but it can only destroy your future. If you were just an ordinary disciple, I think your master wouldn't kill you anymore." Ordinary disciple? There was a hint of bitterness in Lu Li's words. She was an ambitious person who wanted to make a name for herself. She wanted to bring honor to her royal family. Coupled with her talent and beauty, how could she be willing to be ordinary? For ordinary disciples, abolish their cultivation or destroy their appearance. Choose one of the two. Liuli's delicate body trembled. Her eyes were filled with pain. No one was willing to give up everything they had, especially the things they were proud of. Why? Why did I have to suffer such a thing? Her emotions collapsed once again. To survive. Liuli clenched her teeth and said, if I have to live like this, I'd rather die. Not everyone was a madam. Not everyone could destroy their peerless appearance for the person they loved. Many women valued their appearance more than their lives. If they wanted to establish themselves in the immortal martial arts world, cultivation was the foundation. Once they lost it, they would suffer all kinds of coldness and ridicule. Many people couldn't stand it either. Jiang Xiu said. Then there's only one path left. Kill Flowery Shadowstream. From Liuli's point of view, her first choice was naturally to kill Flowery Shadowstream. This was her thought from the very beginning. But the problem was, can we kill an immortal king? Jiang Xiu said. This is indeed very difficult, but it's not completely impossible. Our most advantageous condition right now is that she doesn't know that you already know that she's the murderer of so many of your senior sisters. She doesn't have the slightest bit of defense against you. Liuli nodded. Jiang Xiu said, let's go back first. This matter can't be resolved overnight. We'll discuss it at length when we go back. But she's coming tomorrow. Liuli's eyes were filled with fear. It seemed that Flowery Shadowstream was very harsh and cruel to its disciples. Liuli felt fear towards this Shizhuan from the bottom of her heart. Moreover, she was a perverted murderous demon. Her heart was terrified to the extreme. Thinking of Hua Luiying, her delicate body trembled. She won't attack you as soon as she arrives. Jiang Xiu said, after you go back, take a bath and change your clothes properly. Calm yourself down and don't show any signs of nervousness. Just like before. If you don't know your Shizhuan's character, you should be very happy that she came to see you this time. Chapter 650. Jiang Xiu sent Luli back to her residence. Luli's emotions slowly calmed down. After all, she was someone who was used to seeing life and death. Even if she hadn't experienced a smooth journey since she was a child. She was born in the imperial family. The imperial family's natural disposition was cold, so she wasn't surprised. It was just that she couldn't bear it when it suddenly happened to her. Shizhuan, we'll be there tomorrow. Does Jiang Ge have any brilliant plans? Jiang Xiu looked at Luli's frightened eyes. There was an additional ruthlessness that hadn't been there before. He keenly sensed that Luli's killing intent towards Hua Luiying was already very strong. Jiang Xiu shook his head. Take a good bath, change, and rest. Adjust your state of mind. Tomorrow, we'll welcome sect leader Hua. I'll go back first. Luli was a little nervous. You're leaving? Jiang Xiu said. Don't tell me you want me to stay and accompany you. Only then did Luli realize that the person in front of her had only known her for a few days. Their relationship was far from that close. Furthermore, the other party was a man. Since that's the case, Jiang Ge, please go back first. Jiang Xiu gave her a deep look. I won't let you die at the hands of Flower Shadowstream. When they returned to the courtyard rented by Tianxing School, the majestic night breeze blew. It was very comfortable, but there weren't many people outside. Most of them were already cultivating in their own rooms. At Qingling Mountain, many strong practitioners had arrived, and the competitive atmosphere was very strong. Under the influence of this, many people worked hard to improve themselves. When night fell and they had nothing to do, they would cultivate in their own rooms. Needless to say, Jiang Xiu was a cultivation maniac. As soon as he returned to his room, the first thing he did was cultivate for a while to satisfy his craving. He had already absorbed more than half of the essence blood in his body. The evolution of his divine body couldn't be seen on the surface, but he could clearly feel that the great deity's power had skyrocketed by a large amount. Appear. The third divine Tao pattern on Jiang Xiu's body lit up. He didn't show any changes on the surface, but everything inside his body changed drastically. It turned pitch black, and all the life force inside seemed to have turned into energy. There was also a whirlpool-like distortion. He could clearly feel that the energy factor of the power was already approaching the tiniest of powers. However, it was still far from reaching the level of fineness of the power of an immortal king. It was also unable to detonate with the power of an atomic bomb, but it was already a huge improvement compared to before. The essence blood of ancient god Buzhou that Zhao Rong gave him was no ordinary item. If Jiang Xiu were to cultivate and evolve his divine body by himself, it would take an unimaginable amount of time. Perhaps hundreds or even thousands of years. The speed at which Jiang Xiu absorbed the essence blood didn't slow down in the slightest. Generally speaking, whether it was taking medicinal pills, absorbing spiritual objects, or other kinds of cultivation, the effects would slowly decrease, and it would become more and more difficult to improve. However, he didn't show the slightest sign of slowing down. One had to know that the energy base was continuously stacked, so it was inevitable that it would slow down. For example, if a person took $100 to gamble, and if he won, he would naturally get $100. Then he would have $200 in his hands. Ordinary people would take another $100 to gamble for cultivation, but Jiang Xiu was taking the $100 he won and $200 to gamble. After he won, he would take $400 to gamble, and continuously absorb the essence blood to increase his power at such a speed. This was really nature-defying. When he reached $1 million, he would still take $1 million to gamble, but others would still take $100 to gamble. How huge was this gap? How astonishing was the speed at which he absorbed the essence blood. Before this, Jiang Xiu also didn't have this kind of feeling. Was this the effect of the third divine Tao pattern? This is great! With this discovery, even Jiang Xiu couldn't help but get excited. The third divine Tao pattern was really nature-defying. If this continued, he might be able to evolve to the divine king level faster than he expected. Where did my bloodline come from? What kind of protoss is it? Jiang Xiu couldn't stay calm. With such a powerful bloodline and such an amazing cultivation speed, how terrifying would it be if such a race of protoss didn't go extinct? Originally, he didn't intend to cultivate for long to avoid being exposed, but he didn't expect to lose track of time while cultivating. Unknowingly, the sky outside was already bright. At dawn, the sun shone in from outside. Jiang Xiu woke up and realized that the night had passed. He stopped cultivating and fell into bed to catch up on sleep. Rustling sounds could be heard outside. Today there were fights everywhere. There was another important matter. The first immortal king was about to arrive at Qingling Mountain. Hua Luiying was the most beautiful woman in the world back then. She was the most beautiful woman in the world. Many people wanted to catch a glimpse of her beauty. If Lu Li was the new king, then Hua Luiying was the heavenly king. There was still a long way to go. Even Qingling Mountain was filled with heavenly music, because of Hua Luiying's arrival. Hua Zhejian's disciples, led by Lu Li, had been busy preparing for the arrival of their master since last night. Early in the morning, they went to Qingling Mountain's platform to welcome her. Today Lu Li wore a light blue dress. There was a touch of beauty in the simple elegance. She didn't need to dress up. She was like a commoner school beauty. She didn't need to do her hair or makeup. She just had to wear the school uniform and stand out at the school gate. She would make all the other beauties pale in comparison. Sometimes, even Bai Qianqian would be jealous of her beauty. Although beauty often followed the trend and everyone's perception of beauty was different, right now, Lu Li was definitely popular. Her radiance overshadowed her and the other girls. But Lu Li's face wasn't flushed with success. Her eyes were absent-minded. She's here. A junior sister saw the clouds in the distance. A huge flying boat rushed out like a prehistoric beast. The flying boat was full of flags. She could see the words on them from afar. Ah! Lu Li's delicate body twitched. She was shocked and her face turned pale. She's here. She looked at the sky, her eyes full of fear. She was like a wild deer on the grassland, guarded by a lion. When the lion was hungry, it would eat her in one bite. But she couldn't do anything. She could only wait helplessly for the lion to eat her. Greetings, master. The speed of the flying boat was extremely fast. It only took a moment for it to arrive several thousand meters away. A woman wearing a red and yellow robe with a crown on her head stood on the flying boat like an empress. Her skirt was 3 to 4 meters long, and was covered with golden talisman patterns. Even her clothes were not simple. The disciples half-squatted and saluted from afar. Luli noticed that all the junior sisters were saluting and slowly half-squatted as well. She unwillingly shouted, "Greetings, Master." This was a situation that would never have happened in the past. No matter how harsh Hua Luiying was to her, no matter how much she criticized her, she was willing to guard her. She thought that her master was doing this for her own good. But now, because of Jiang Xiu, everything had changed. Luli couldn't wait for her to die. She's here. Jiang Xiu felt that powerful aura approaching Green Spirit Mountain quickly. She was different from many other immortal kings. Most immortal kings would restrain their aura. Firstly, they didn't want to be so pretentious. Secondly, some people with low cultivation levels would feel oppressed and uncomfortable. But Hua Luiying liked the feeling of being the center of attention. Back then, Jiang Xiu felt that Hua Luiying was born in the wrong place. She should have been born on Earth. In that case, she should have been a female star. A very domineering top female star. A rain of flowers fell from the sky. Celestial music resounded in the sky with great momentum. Of course, many people were fighting on Green Spirit Mountain. At this moment, everyone's attention was attracted to this side. Hua Luiying floated down amidst the rain of flowers. Her clothes fluttered in the wind. Amidst the fiery red, there was a golden glow. She was like a noble phoenix descending to the mortal world. "Master, you're well." Hua Luiying landed beside Luli. Her beautiful face was painted with makeup. Her long eyebrows reached her temples. She looked heroic and domineering. With a smile on her face, she said, "Luli, you've done well. You've given me face." Luli's heart trembled. "It's my duty to bring glory to Master and the sect." After she finished speaking, she swallowed her saliva because she was too nervous. Hua Luiying's gaze swept over. She noticed that Luli's face was pale, and there were even fine beads of sweat on her forehead. "What's wrong? Are you very afraid of me?" Luli's brain exploded on the spot. She was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. Had she been seen through? She trembled even more nervously. Chapter 651. Luli's heart skipped a beat under Hua Luiying's gaze. She knew that she was scaring herself. Hua Luiying wouldn't do anything to her now, but when she thought of what her Shizhuan had done, she felt scared. She couldn't control her fear. No, I haven't seen Shizhuan in a while. I miss Shizhuan." Luli tried her best to squeeze out a smile as she spoke. Her panicked expression, flustered eyes, and helpless smile were truly a sight to behold. Hua Luiying was a woman, but she was moved by Luli's beauty and couldn't help but smile. She was always this young in the past, so Luli didn't feel happy to see her Shizhuan smile. But now, it seemed that behind this smile hid a terrifying murderous intent. This was a cold smile. "Oh, you're not afraid of me, but you miss me?" Hua Luiying walked forward. All the disciples followed behind her obediently, while Luli listened to her lecture at the side. However, after that, Hua Luiying didn't say a word. Since their Shizhuan didn't speak, they didn't dare to speak either. A frightening haze flashed across Hua Luiying's eyes from time to time. No one knew what she was thinking. Luli trembled. Her fear of her just now was abnormal. Usually, the disciples were very afraid of their Shizhuan, but Hua Luiying wasn't someone who would get angry for no reason. She wouldn't punish the disciples carelessly, so there was no need to be so afraid. Hence, Luli was worried that she suspected that she already knew about her killing those senior sisters. Luli was very nervous the whole way. When they returned to their living quarters, Hua Luiying sat high above while Luli stood below with her head lowered. "How did you break the unbreakable body of the golden sun?" How would Luli know how she broke it? She said, "An expert gave me pointers." She didn't need to hide this point. She couldn't hide it either. "You're honest, but no matter what, you won this duel. You broke the unbreakable body of the golden sun. That's enough." Hua Luiying wasn't Jiang Xiu. She was so proud that she didn't allow any impurities. In her worldview, only the results and process weren't important. Some people said that it was Hua Zhejian who had broken the unbreakable golden sun body. It was just like many people who openly changed history and revised textbooks. It seemed very retarded and ridiculous, but after a few decades or 100 years, the history they changed became true history. This was because everyone only looked at history books, and the people who truly experienced it were already dead. Many years later, those who knew that someone had taught Luli how to break the Golden Sun indestructible body would also die. Then wouldn't it be Luli, Hua Zhejian's disciple, who had broken the Golden Sun indestructible body? What about the backlash from the Sword Spirit Pavilion? Also taught by an expert? His words were actually filled with ridicule. He was not ridiculing her for borrowing the power of others. On Green Spirit Mountain, which sect's elders did not do everything they could to help their disciples, using their connections and asking for advice everywhere? But Hua Luiying's mockery was more like pushing away her own talent, just like a child who had done something bad and pushed the responsibility to others. This kind of tone made Luli's heart chill endlessly. At this time, Luli calmed down instead. It was the same for fear and unfear. Yes, it was also taught by that expert. It's a talisman. A talisman that can cause the sword spirit to bite back? Hua Luiying laughed coldly. She had never heard of such a talisman. Tianwen's talisman contained many interpretations of strange phenomena. After it was translated, it naturally had some unique effects, but it was translated based on the foundation of the Tianqing school's spirit suppression talisman. This expert you're talking about, I really want to meet him. When Luli mentioned Jiang Xiao, her heart suddenly calmed down and she said, he's a disciple of the Tianqing school called Jiang Xiao. He was originally a genius, but he was injured to the point that his natal talisman broke and he became a cripple. He's from the Tianqing school? A strange expression appeared on Hua Luiying's face. She couldn't help but be a little absent-minded. That all-powerful man seemed to have appeared far away. To be honest, Hua Luiying really admired Jiang Luoxia and even worshipped him. But in her heart, she also hated Jiang Luoxia. Which man in the world didn't fall head over heels for her? But Jiang Luoxia didn't even spare her a glance. But in a flash 60 years had passed. So he's from the Tianqing school. Please come and let me take a look. Luli said without hesitation. Sure, I'll send someone to invite him over. No rush. But Hua Luiying stopped her. You've been at Qingling Mountain for so long. Have you heard that there used to be a Qingling beast in Qingling Mountain? Luli nodded. Legend had it that this place was called Qingling Mountain because there used to be an ancient beast, the Qingling beast. It was said that the beast was incomparably huge. When it spread its wings, it was dozens of miles wide. It shook the heavens and roamed the universe freely. With a flap of its arms, it could fly 1,000,000 miles. It flew with lightning, and its eyes were like the sun and the moon. But no portrait was passed down. There were about 3 different versions circulating in the immortal martial continent. I've heard of it, Hua Luiying said. 100 underworlds converge, 7 stars align. The firmament opens its eyes, and the earth reveals a Qingling. Master said that in a few days, there will be a strange phenomenon here. The Qingling beast will appear. Hua Luiying nodded. Master wants to obtain the Qingling beast. Legend had it that the Qingling beast was so powerful that even 1/1000th of its power would be enough for Hua Luiying to advance to the immortal emperor realm. How could she not want it? Many years ago, I discovered an underground city in the ruins of tens of thousands of years ago. Of course, the city was already abandoned, but there was a throne inside. On it was written, 100 underworlds converge, 7 stars align, the firmament opens its eyes, and the earth reveals a Qingling. Hua Luiying's face was a little excited. I've already waited for 700 years. Finally, the celestial phenomenon of 100 underworlds converging and 7 stars aligning has arrived. Luli said, Congratulations, Master. It's still too early to congratulate me. It won't be too late to congratulate me after I've really obtained the power of the Qingling. Luli nodded, but she was thinking in her heart. Does the Qingling really exist in this world? When I obtain the power of the Qingling, it will also be the day when I'm ranked in the Qingling ranking. At that time, our Hua Zhejian will cause a sensation in the immortal martial continent, and there will be no one in the limelight. Excitement flashed across Hua Luiying's face. Luli said, How long will the date be? Hua Luiying said. I heard from the people of Zhaixinglu that it will be 3 days later. When the time comes, I will set up a large array in the Qingling Mountain to prevent outsiders from intruding. Therefore, in these few days, all of you must be careful and move stealthily in the Qingling Mountain. Time is tight. Fortunately, right now is the time for the Qingling ranking. The people of Qingling Mountain are also paying attention to the Qingling ranking. As long as all of you are careful, you shouldn't be discovered. Luli said. This disciple understands. It was impossible to set up a powerful array in someone else's territory. The only thing that could be set up was an isolation array that could temporarily isolate the area, giving Hua Luiying enough time to find the Qingling beast or to obtain the Qingling beast. Jiang Xiu stood in front of the window in the room. Outside the window was a cliff with thick clouds floating in the air. In the distant mountains were strange peaks and ancient trees. His eyes were deep and profound. Dong dong. The sound of knocking came from outside the door. Guest, Princess Luli requests an audience. Although Hua Luiying was here, she didn't go so far as to restrict the personal freedom of her disciples. In this aspect, Hua Luiying wasn't so perverted. She wasn't strict with her disciples. After all, she was an immortal king. Her disciples were all important figures. There was no need to watch them so closely. Let her in. Luli hurried in. She could no longer be as calm and collected as before, especially when facing Jiang Xiu. Jiang Ge, my honored master seems to have found out. Found out what? Luli said. She found out that I know about her killing Shiji. Jiang Xiu shook his head. As long as you don't admit it yourself, even if she has suspicions, they'll remain suspicions. As long as you don't admit it, it'll be fine. Isn't this better? At least your honored master will have some reservations. Luli said. She should hurry up and make a move on me. Jiang Xiu said. You're still standing in front of me. Have you thought of a way to deal with her? Jiang Xiu said. Don't be anxious. It won't be so fast. From the looks of it, she'll at least wait for you to finish this time's Azure Spirit role. We still have time. Luli frowned and sighed helplessly. She complained. I'm not afraid of Jiang Ge laughing at me. If I see her again today, I'll be so scared that I can't stand straight. Chapter 652. Hua Luiying's figure appeared out of thin air in the sky. Her long red dress fluttered in the wind. Her gaze swept across the land, and her fingers seemed to be calculating something. Then, she looked up and frowned. Why isn't there any movement at all? Could it be that Zhaixinglu's information was wrong? At this moment, there was a rumbling sound. There was an obvious tremor in the sky far away from the mountain range. Then the sky seemed to split open, but it quickly disappeared without a trace. Hua Luiying was overjoyed. This is it. After more than 700 years of receiving the maxim, the celestial phenomenon has finally appeared. Jiang Luoxia, what kind of genius are you? Now you're just a pile of bones. I, the Hua Luiying you look down on, the one you called a vase, will surpass everyone and become the immortal emperor. She looked a little excited. In the immortal martial continent, one's talent was naturally very important. Of course, there was also good fortune. There were many who were more talented than Jiang Xiu, but they all died early on. There were also some whose talent was weaker than Jiang Xiu, but they all had good fortune and obtained some ancient ruins, allowing their strength to soar by leaps and bounds. The one who wins in the end is the real winner. Her face was indescribably evil and sinister. When a beautiful face turned evil, it was even more terrifying than an ugly face. In the next moment, she returned to her residence. Pass down the order. I will invite everyone to a banquet. Yes. The invitations were quickly sent to the various sections. Of course, the sects that were invited were those that Hua Luiying had dealings with. The others were some of the emerging geniuses of the smaller sects, barely able to make it to the last place. The sects would not invite everyone. For example, Tianqing School only invited a few people. Logically speaking, Jiang Xiu did not have the qualifications, but sect master Hua wanted to meet Jiang Xiu and see what kind of expert he was, to be able to guide her disciple to 2 consecutive victories. There were other reasons. When the invitations were sent, Peak Master Qin Quan only invited Qin Qing, Jiang Xiu, and another disciple. A group of 4. Going to a banquet, of course, they had to bring some gifts. Although these gifts were nothing in the eyes of Sect Master Hua, they still had to be polite. It's that brat. A very discordant sound came from afar. Humph, a disciple of a large sect. You're just putting on an act behind your elders. You can't wait to tie your elders to your belt. Jiang Xiu looked over and saw the 2 people he had seen at Lioli residence the last 2 times. Some people really don't know their own names. They know that they are trash, but they still want to squeeze themselves into the ranks of geniuses. Aren't you afraid of falling from too high a height? Recently, Luli had been very close to Jiang Xiu. Many people had seen it, especially the 2 suitors of Luli, Qiu Xian and Dongwu. They disliked Jiang Xiu even more. Qin Qing looked at Jiang Xiu. Those people were deliberately whispering some unpleasant words beside them. Their words were directed at Jiang Xiu. Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, do you have a grudge with them? Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, do they have the qualifications? Qin Qing said, Junior Marshal Brother, you have to take it easy. Luck and love comes with love tribulations. She smiled as she said this. Tell Senior Marshal Sister, how far have you and Princess Luli progressed? Her eyes were still burning with the flames of gossip. Jiang Xiu was about to answer when an extremely pleasant voice sounded. Jiang Ge. A figure slowly walked over. Who else could it be but Princess Luli, who was in the limelight right now? A smile finally appeared on her face again. Her gaze directly fell on Jiang Xiu's face, ignoring everyone else. This made the other 2 even more unhappy, their faces turning green. You're here. Listening to her tone, it didn't seem like she was talking to an outsider. Everyone, please come in. When everyone arrived, Hua Luiying did the same. Jiang Xiu, who was in the inn, looked at the strange colors in the sky all over Qingling Mountain. Sometimes, she could see an inexplicable tremor in the void, rippling out circle after circle of ripples. Every time she saw it, a smile would spread across her face. 100 underworlds converge. Using the secret of prying into the sky, she could see that where the ripples appeared in the sky, there were actually streaks of black cracks. The naked eye absolutely couldn't see them. This was the strange scene of the first sentence of the maxim she received in the mystic realm. Moreover, in her eyes that emitted golden light, the cracks in the void weren't just 1 or 2 heavens, but 100 underworlds. Once they converged and encountered the situation of the 7 stars aligned, a strange black hole would appear in the sky. That was when the heavens opened their eyes. When that time came, it would be the time for the Qingling beast to appear. The strange scene in the sky was too far away. If one didn't deliberately pry into the sky, they wouldn't discover it at all. However, every sound could be clearly heard by Jiang Xiu. Hua Luiying must also be paying attention to what he knew. She was more concerned than anyone else. The Qingling beast? Jiang Xiu's eyes swept across the distant horizon and retracted without leaving a trace. Azurite said to Jiang Xiu, Master may ask you some questions later. Jiang Xiu responded. The sect master has arrived. An announcement was heard, and the clamor at the scene quieted down in an instant. They saw Hua Luiying appear in the main hall in the distance, followed by her disciples. Greetings to Sect Master Hua. Everyone bowed in greeting. Jiang Xiu's gaze fell on her body. She wore a crown on her head, had makeup on her face, and was dressed in brocade clothes. She looked like an empress. She didn't look like she had changed much, but her ostentation was even more extravagant. In the past, when she wanted to meet with Jiang Luoxia, she would dress simply and su-su. She definitely wouldn't dare to be so overbearing. You're all excused. You're all guests, so there's no need to stand on ceremony. Please take a seat. Jiang Xiu and his group naturally sat together. My disciples Huazu Yijian have been indebted to everyone for taking care of us in Qingling Mountain for many days. Especially my traitorous disciple Azurite. I've troubled everyone. This sect master proposes a toast to everyone. Everyone present raised their cups one after another. Jiang Xiu's gaze was so cold that it was a little frightening. He had helped Hua Luiying a lot to be able to reach the sect master level, and he had even saved her life several times. Hua Luiying went back on his words and was ungrateful. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu had an impulse to draw his sword and directly behead Hua Luiying. However, not to mention that he was now a great deity. Even if his godly body had evolved to the second form and become a divine king, it wouldn't be easy for Jiang Xiu to kill Hua Luiying if they were at the same level. Unless Jiang Xiu could use the Tianwen talisman to translate all of the Tianqing school's secret techniques that he had previously learned, only then could he possibly kill Hua Luiying. After drinking her cup, Hua Luiying's gaze swept towards the Tianqing school's seat. Of course, she wanted to see Jiang Xiu. She saw a handsome and somewhat indescribably cold and arrogant man, and her whole body froze. At first glance, she thought that she was looking at Jiang Luoxia, but upon closer inspection, the two of them were actually very different. However, Hua Luiying was naturally suspicious, so she wouldn't think too much about it. "You're Jiang Xiu from Tianqing school?" Jiang Xiu said. "That's right. Lapis Lazuli praised you to the skies in front of this sect." Hua Luiying's most powerful sorcery was her eye technique. In this aspect, Jiang Luoxiao admitted that he was far inferior to her. Jiang Xiu felt a strange light flashing in her eyes and knew that she was spying on him. Her eye technique could even see the life weapons of people who were of a lower realm than her. This eye technique was very heaven-defying. What a pity! Jiang Xiu guessed that she must have seen his life weapon shatter. In the immortal martial continent's knowledge, a shattered life weapon meant that one was crippled, just like a mortal who had lost their limbs. They were considered disabled people. Of course, they could abandon it and start over again, but very few people with great perseverance could rise again. Such outstanding talent. Yet he became a god elementalist, and his life weapon was even destroyed. Upon hearing this, Lapis Lazuli looked at Jiang Xiu with some regret. She believed that Jiang Xiu's vision and talent far surpassed the current geniuses. Unfortunately, he was unlucky and fate played a huge joke on him. "You're also surnamed Jiang?" Jiang Xiu said. "Yes." Hua Luiying's eyes revealed a dim color. "AI, this sect was best friends with your sect's previous sect leader, Jiang Luoxia. Back then, we were like you all, fighting for the Azure Spirit list here. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Sect leader Jiang would be one step ahead of us." When she spoke of this sad part, her eyes were actually filled with tears, and they almost fell. Everyone who saw this was emotionally moved. Jiang Xiu felt a wave of disgust in his heart. She was one of the accomplices in Jiang Luoxia's murder, or rather, one of the plotters. Hua Luiying sect, you don't need to be so pretentious. This sect leader wants you to have a taste of what it feels like to be betrayed by someone you trust. Chapter 653. When it came to Jiang Luoxia, there was no one present who didn't know him. He was the most powerful genius in the last 3,000 years. He had overcome all obstacles to become an immortal king and become the head of Tianqing school. It could be said that he was extremely brilliant and legendary. Jiang Luoxia's reputation had not been seen in thousands of years. The reason was that he was the fastest genius to become an immortal king. It could be said that he was a heavenly king in the immortal martial continent. His popularity was unparalleled. However, there were also people who didn't understand the situation and said maliciously, "Indeed, sect leader Jiang is amazing. It's a pity that after sect leader Jiang, Tianqing school didn't have a decent disciple." In fact, Jiang Luoxia and the elders of the sect had also taken in a few talented disciples. Their achievements were not low, far surpassing the so-called geniuses present. Unfortunately, they were all overshadowed by Jiang Luoxia's brilliance and were underestimated by the world. The Tianqing school group couldn't take it anymore. This was a slap in the face in front of everyone. Looking over, it was Qiu Xian. Dongwu was a medium-sized sect, so he didn't dare to act rashly. However, Qiu Xian was a disciple of Dragon King Palace, which was also a large sect and not inferior to Tianqing school. Naturally, he wouldn't be afraid of the pressure from the so-called large sect background. Hua Luiying's face revealed a meaningful expression. Her hatred for Jiang Luoxia naturally transferred to Tianqing school. In particular, Jiang Luoxia's death couldn't be separated from her. She couldn't wait for Tianqing School to be unlucky. It would be best if they were destroyed and disappeared from the world. Therefore, she was happy to see Tianqing School being humiliated. Who are you? How dare you slander my Tianqing School's disciples? Qingqing was one of the representatives. This time, not many people came from Tianqing School. The main reason was that the sect was in turmoil. There was a big battle a while ago, and then the sect was about to move. Many elders forbade disciples from participating in this year's Azure Spirit list. Qingqing and other muscles came and had the responsibility of protecting Tianqing School, although she was far from being ranked in the sect. Qiu Xian said, "Is this slander? I'm just stating the truth." Qingqing's eyes were cold. "Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Do you want to compete with my Tianqing School's disciples?" If they were to fight, Qingqing would not back. "I would like to see what kind of strength your Dragon King Palace has that you dare to boast shamelessly here." But this was Hua Zhejian's home ground, and in front of Sect Master Hua, an immortal king. If they fought here, it would be a slap to the face of the host, unless the host agreed. Qiu Xian said, "Sect Master Hua, if I may be so bold, I would like to spar with the people of the Heaven Motion sect." Hua Luiying smiled faintly. "This is Qingling Mountain, a place where you juniors can spar and discuss the Tao. Why would I stop you?" Qiu Xian's Qiu. Qiu Xian's SSSSDS Lu Li looked at Jiang Xiu with some worry. She knew Qiu Xian's strength. He had a special Dragon King body, which contained the tyrannical power of a dragon. His talent was outstanding in his generation, and he was very famous. On the other hand, Qingqing was not famous. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Tianqing School would probably humiliate themselves if they insisted on fighting. "Please, let the world see Tianqing School's strength." Qiu Xian stood up and walked to the center of the field unhurriedly. He cupped his hands at Qingqing, indicating for her to come out and fight. Qingqing's expression was a bit ugly, but she did not back down. She stood up resolutely. Dragon King Palace. Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold, but there was a slight sneer at the corner of his mouth. Qingqing sat next to him. Before entering the field, Jiang Xiu stuffed a talisman into her hand and said softly, "Put it in your mouth and hold your breath." Qingqing did not understand. What could a talisman do in her mouth? She spread it out and saw that it was full of heavenly questioning talismans that she did not understand. But Qingqing still trusted Jiang Xiu. She also admired Jiang Xiu's talent. Unfortunately, he did not have his own cultivation. She reached out and touched her mouth, then stuffed the talisman into it. "Please." A strange red light flashed in Jiang Xiu's eyes. He gave Qingqing a puppet talisman. It was not very profound. It was a puppet talisman translated by Tianqing School, with heavenly questioning talisman. After Qingqing put the talisman in her mouth and held her breath, she would become Jiang Xiu's puppet and be controlled by Jiang Xiu. But after all, Qingqing was not a real corpse. She had half the ability to control her own body. Therefore, she immediately felt that the talisman Jiang Xiu gave her might be a puppet talisman. She nodded slightly at Jiang Xiu. The sword was whistling. They were from the same school. Qingqing could immediately understand what kind of sword skill Jiang Xiu used. She immediately operated the corresponding sword skill. Jiang Xiu could hide it from others, but he could not hide it from Hua Luiying, who had outstanding pupil techniques. She could see through Jiang Xiu's tricks at a glance. She smiled coldly and secretly laughed at Jiang Xiu's overconfidence. He thought that he could help the Tianqing School's female disciple win Qiu Xian. Arrogant. Azurite, who was standing at the side, saw it too and was very worried. Jiang Xiu narrowed his eyes slightly. He used the lesser fate art and tried his best to see the situation of the battle. His mind flashed, and he saw Qiu Xian's body being shrouded in golden light. It was as if a golden dragon was circling around a pole, and it condensed into one. A terrifying dragon's roar was heard, and there seemed to be a flood dragon surging in the sky. A strong wind blew, and the airflow in the hall was uncontrollable. At the same time he attacked Qingqing. Golden dragon emerging from the sea? Jiang Xiu was naturally familiar with the Dragon King Palace. He had fought with the old Dragon King of the Dragon King Palace before. However, this Qiu Xian was still far from being a true disciple. He had not even learned the elders' techniques, let alone the Lord's. Qiu Xian stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at Qin Qing with disdain. The people around him were talking about it. The Tianqing school's female disciple seems to be a little behind in terms of cultivation level. Indeed, she's bound to lose. Some people shook their heads. Say, why bother? It's better to endure for a while. She's not strong enough, yet she still wants to stand out. Isn't she just asking for humiliation? Hua Luiying glanced at the female disciple he was most proud of. Azurite's eyes widened nervously. It seemed that this female disciple cared a lot about Jiang Xiu. She had already surpassed friends. She sneered and raised her head slightly. Wait a minute, you'll be disappointed. From Hua Luiying's point of view, Tianqing school was bound to lose. The difference in cultivation level and Qiu Xian's special physique left them with no choice but to be crushed. Moreover, the two of them had to attack together. If they didn't have a tacit understanding, they would die even faster. Of course, she could see Jiang Xiu's plan. His own cultivation level was destroyed, but he boasted about his sword techniques and amazing insight. He wanted to use his senior sister's body to fight against the enemy. This kind of fighting style required a long period of practice. Otherwise, in the face of a life-and-death battle, if one's thoughts were not united, the result would be a backlash like the sword spirit and become a burden. Stupid and self-righteous. After Jiang Luoxia, Tianqing school didn't have any more geniuses. Hua Luiying reached out and took a sip of wine. Her eyes blinked lightly. In the blink of an eye, Qiu Xian made his move. Hua Luiying saw him squat down abruptly, accompanied by a dragon's roar. A golden light emerged from the ground like a golden dragon emerging from the sea. It circled around his body and shot into the sky. A violent force blew over like a level 12 storm that suddenly erupted. She closed her eyes at this moment, but from the corner of her eyes, she saw that her opponent had arrived first. Heaven's judgment and earth's judgment, shadow sword of flowing light. Qin Qing's better figure seemed to step on the distorted space and opened a mysterious path. She forcefully slashed her sword into the weak part of the airflow. How is this possible? Hua Luiying's heart suddenly jumped. Kill. Jiang Xiu's voice was very quiet. With a pff, Qiu Xian widened his eyes in shock. He had only used half of his sword technique, but his opponent had already broken through his sword technique and chopped off his head. The evil dragon bowed its head. Fresh blood splattered. Hua. There was an uproar in the field. If it had been someone like Hua Luiying, they probably wouldn't have been able to see clearly what had happened in the blink of an eye. One hit, one kill? One sword. Everyone was stunned. They looked at Qin Qing, who was holding a sword in her hand. She looked valiant and valiant. She had become incomparably tall. Her sword was stained with blood that was still dripping down the blade. They were dumbfounded. They were completely unable to describe what they were feeling at this moment. It was too shocking. 1 second? Chapter 654. Everyone's gazes shifted from the corpse to Qin Qing with difficulty. This sword strike was clean and efficient, without any hesitation. It was so domineering. The whole place was silent. This sword strike not only killed Qiu Xian, but also shocked everyone present who doubted Tianqing school, and even mocked Tianqing school. Who dared to say that Tianqing school had no talent among the new generation? Then let's try Tianqing school's methods. This level of instant kill was too strong a visual impact. This was not a low-level opponent against a high-level opponent, but more like an attack by an immortal king. How did he do it? How did he do it? As an immortal king, Hua Luiying found it hard to imagine. Even if the sword technique of the Dragon King Palace was at the true level, it was not so easily broken. Moreover, the sword technique was broken before it was completed. It was as if he knew what sword technique the opponent was going to use. Hua Luiying's wine cup was suspended in midair, and she didn't put it down for a long time. This also proved the extent of her shock. As a high and mighty celestial king, Seeing a fledgling brat do something that even she couldn't do, of course she would be shocked, and quite shocked at that. Of course, it would be easy for Hua Luiying to kill Chiu Xian with one sword strike. However, that was relying on the advantage of overwhelming strength and not breaking the opponent's sword technique in an instant. She knew that she could not complete a one-hit kill when she was at a disadvantage. This sword strike was a truly stunning one. Only then did this sword strike reveal unparalleled talent. This sword strike was a so-called genius sword strike. People often said that geniuses were geniuses. If one did not understand before, then after seeing this, one would truly understand the meaning of the word genius. Everyone's gaze changed when they looked at Qin Qing. Hua Luiying, Lu Li, and even Qin Qing, who knew that it was Jiang Xiu who made the move, all changed their gazes. It was incomparably stunning and at the same time, incomparably regretful. Is there anyone else who says that Tianqing School has no talent? Dong Wu's pupils contracted. He lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound. He was too domineering. He killed him directly. Chiu Xian was not the only one from the Dragon King Palace. Although the Dragon King Palace was infuriated to see that Chiu Xian was the one who provoked the Dragon King Palace, the Dragon King Palace was killed because he was not as skillful as the Dragon King Palace. The Dragon King Palace could only blame Chiu Xian for the Dragon King Palace's death. Although the new generation of Tianqing School was a little quiet, the old guys in the sect were each more terrifying than the other. The strength and prestige of the Dragon King Palace were a little inferior, so they could only pinch their noses and swallow this bitter result. The Peak Lord of the Rockfall Peak, Su Qingquan, was also in disbelief as he stared at Qin Qing, who was walking back. He was also dumbfounded. Qin Qing's aptitude could be considered outstanding in the immortal martial continent, but when placed in the immortal martial continent, where geniuses gathered, she could only be considered average. Even in the Tianqing School, she was still considered average. But that sword strike of hers was simply too stunning. Su Qingquan couldn't help but wonder if the previous Qin Qing had intentionally concealed her strength. Good wonderful. Tianqing School is still full of geniuses after Jiang Luoxia. Hua Luiying was a woman who didn't like having her limelight stolen from her, especially when the other party was a woman. Today the banquet is wonderful, and the weather is beautiful. Everyone, let's drink together. Thank you, Sect Master, someone at the banquet said. It seems like the weather today is a little strange. Previously on my way here, I even heard a strange sound of thunder, but it wasn't dark clouds or thunder. Hua Luiying's hand stiffened, and her expression changed. Someone at the side continued. You still don't know? Tomorrow will be the gathering of the 100 underworlds. What's the gathering of the 100 underworlds? Haven't you heard? The gathering of the 100 underworlds and the alignment of the 7 stars is a kind of strange celestial phenomenon. There must be a demon in the sky. Maybe something will happen in these 2 days. Lu Li glanced at her master and saw a smile on Hua Luiying's face. Even an ordinary person could see that a celestial phenomenon was coming, so Zhai Xinglu's prophecy couldn't be wrong. But the common people only knew about celestial phenomena, but how could they know where the cause and effect was? The gathering of the 100 underworlds and the alignment of the 7 stars was just the beginning. There were even more powerful celestial phenomena. Of course, these common people didn't know. Not only these people, but she was the only one in the immortal martial continent who knew. This was a sentence she saw in the ancient ruins. Others didn't care about it, but she keenly captured this sentence as an opportunity for her to become an immortal emperor. The gathering of the 100 underworlds, the alignment of the 7 stars, the opening of the eyes of the firmament, the emergence of the blue spirit. For this sentence, Hua Luiying looked through many ancient books. When strange beasts first appeared, they needed a long period of hibernation to slowly recover their vitality. In other words, they were very weak, so weak that she, an immortal king, could succeed. Everything would depend on tomorrow. That would be a big day. A day that would be recorded in the annals of the immortal martial continent. She desperately hoped that tomorrow would come sooner. After 3 rounds of wine, everyone drank to their heart's content. Of course, everything was centered around Hua Luiying, listening to her preach and listening to her reminisce about the past. When night fell and the full moon hung high in the sky, the banquet finally ended. That night, a celestial phenomenon appeared in the sky. In the pitch-black night sky, the stars suddenly shone with a fiery red light. It felt as if the sky was leaking and flames from beyond the sky were burning in. Hua Luiying sensed the red light outside, and was startled awake from his meditation. He quickly walked over and looked outside. The strange phenomenon of the burning sky had already disappeared, but the stars in the sky were exceptionally bright. Is the alignment of the 7 stars coming? Liuli heard the commotion outside and walked in. Master, did something happen? Hua Luiying was a little excited. Your disciple is here. After so many years, she had never called Liuli so intimately like today. Liuli couldn't imagine that the person in front of her was a perverted murderer, who was jealous of the virtuous and the capable. Look at the stars outside. Liuli followed her out of the hall. It was late at night and the winds were strong, causing the curtains of the palace to flutter. The distant mountains were very quiet, and the sky was unusually bright. That is, Hua Luiying pointed to the sky and said, it's the alignment of the 7 stars. Liuli immediately bowed and said, Congratulations, master. Ha 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 ha. Hua Luiying laughed heartily in a carefree mood. Her laughter didn't sound pleasant to Liuli's ears in the deep night. Instead, it sounded exceptionally ferocious, like the cry of an owl. A trace of fear flashed across her lowered eyes. Tomorrow. Once the firmament opens tomorrow, you will activate the array. Liuli said. Your disciple understands. It's late. Go and rest. Recuperate and deal with tomorrow's big event. Liuli bowed and retreated. Hua Luiying slowly retracted her gaze, and turned her head to look at Liuli's departing figure. Her eyes no longer had a beautiful feeling. Her pupils contracted like a dormant ferocious beast. Her eyes were deep in thought. Liuli could also feel the terrifying gaze behind her. It was like being stared at by a wild beast. She couldn't help but quicken her steps and leave. That night, the starry sky was especially bright, especially the 7 stars. They formed a strange circle shape and illuminated the land. In the Xianwu continent, strange astronomical phenomena were not rare. Furthermore, the alignment of the 7 stars here might not be the same in the Tianxing school. Even if many people saw it, they wouldn't care. It was just a strange astronomical phenomenon. Therefore, nothing special happened that night. However, they were still wrong. After the 7-star alignment, the dark clouds in the sky surged especially fiercely. When dawn broke the next day, the sky seemed to be shaking to different degrees. Moreover, the rumbling sound was not something that couldn't be heard far away in the sky, but rather, it felt like it was rolling over. Jiang Xiu believed that with Hua Luiying's eyesight, she should be able to see that a large area of obvious black cracks had appeared in the sky. Furthermore, these cracks seemed to be expanding continuously. Rumble, rumble. The shaking above the firmament became even more intense. Many people ran out of their houses. They felt as if the sky was about to collapse. Rumble, rumble. Liuli rushed over in a hurry. Hua Luiying's expression was unprecedentedly solemn. The firmament was about to open its eyes. Once the firmament opened its eyes, then the 700-plus verdant spirit beast that she had been longing for would appear in the world. Meanwhile, on the distant mountain, Mr. Ink Monk and his disciples were also shocked. What's going on in the sky? Quickly go and check. Chapter 655. The sky has opened its eyes. Mr. Emoka's eyesight was also extremely shocking. When he saw the situation in the sky, his face changed greatly. The sky opening its eyes was recorded in ancient books as being accompanied by disasters, and they were all major disasters. The so-called sky opening its eyes was a hole in the sky. Naturally, there wouldn't be a hole in the sky for no reason, but it was caused by the astronomical phenomenon in front of it. 100 underworlds gather, 7 stars align, the sky has opened its eyes. Everything from yesterday to today had happened too quickly. Mr. Emoku of Green Spirit Mountain frowned. How did the astronomical phenomenon develop so quickly? The momentum is so shocking all of a sudden. The sky is about to collapse, and it's still above my Green Spirit Mountain. It really is unexpected. The disciple holding the brush said, "Master, what should we do?" The sky opening its eyes was only recorded in ancient books, but no one had seen it in reality. But one could imagine how terrifying it was. A hole in the sky, The effects of spatial instability were very frightening. Of course, the immortal cultivators were clear in their hearts. Should we stop the competition for the green spirit ranking this time? Mr. Earbook looked at the disciple holding the brush and remained silent. Since the establishment of the green spirit ranking, there had never been a history of stopping halfway. Once this was opened, the prestige would fall. Natural disasters were nothing to immortal cultivators. The ones who were truly affected were the mortals. They couldn't bear it. No, the green spirit ranking cannot be stopped. After muttering to himself for a while, Mr. Earbook said, "Use the authority for one more question. Ask the Consonance Pavilion what the consequences of the sky opening its eyes will be. Quickly, quickly." The disciple holding the competition hurriedly responded and left in a hurry. Rumble, rumble. The movement in the sky became louder and louder. Even the cracks that required extremely strong eyesight could be seen just by looking up. It could be seen how big the cracks were. If one got closer, it might already be tens or even hundreds of meters. Rip. Chi-chi. Strange and frightening black electricity flashed out from the cracks. At first, it was very small, but not long after, it formed a large piece between the cracks. Looking from afar, it looked like a region of black electromagnetism. The electromagnetism cloud hung in the sky, as if it would fall at any time. It was very frightening. The sky opening its eyes, the sky opening its eyes. Hua Luiying saw the scene in the sky and trembled with excitement. She had waited for this moment for more than 700 years. How could she not be excited? Quick, activate the array. Luli won, and immediately passed down the order to isolate Green Spirit Mountain. The heavens have opened its eyes, and Qing Ling has appeared. Green Spirit Beast, I've been waiting for you for so long. Luli, on the other hand, was silent. She just looked at the sky in shock. Although the electromagnetism was in the sky, the sound was so loud that it seemed to be right next to her ears. Judging from the height, this electromagnetic cloud covered over 100 miles. Once it fell. What's that? Suddenly, Hua Luiying's expression changed. What? Luli couldn't see the black electromagnetic cloud at all. Inside there seems to be. Hua Luiying didn't continue speaking. The expression on her face was nervous and agitated. Liuli noticed that the pores on her neck had opened up, and her hair was standing on end. What did she see? Everyone was alarmed by the natural phenomenon, except for one person. That person was Jiang Xiao. He was sitting behind the long table, quietly drinking tea, as if everything that was happening outside had nothing to do with him. Junior brother Jiang. Qing ran out in a hurry and rushed in without even knocking on the door. Junior brother Jiang, something big has happened. After yesterday, Qing's opinion of Jiang Xiao had changed. This person was really too demonic. She even felt that Jiang Xiao would definitely achieve great things in the future, even if his natal artifact was broken. The commotion outside was so big, but Jiang Xiao was still leisurely drinking tea. What's wrong? Qing said excitedly. There's a strange phenomenon in the sky, and the situation is a bit serious. Qingling Mountain asked the Lingxi Pavilion and got a sentence. 100 underworlds gather, 7 stars align, the heavens open its eyes, and Qingling has appeared. Jiang Xiao said. And then? Qing widened her eyes and said, haven't you heard of the Green Spirit Beast? No matter if you get the Green Spirit Beast or its power, you can soar to the sky. Right now, almost everyone is rushing towards the heavens. Didn't your natal artifact break? Maybe this is your chance. Jiang Xiao said. Everyone is rushing over. Qing said. Those who heard the news are all rushing over. Peak Master Qing Quan is also rushing over. Judging by the visual, it should be the generation of Qingling Mountains by Ling Valley. We should hurry. She called Jiang Xiao because she wanted to bring him along. However, Jiang Xiao shook his head and said, I have no cultivation. Now that so many people are fighting over it, if I go, it won't be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. What if I can't get the green spirit beast and lose my life instead? Qing was stunned. She hadn't thought about this problem, but she quickly said, I can protect you. Plus, with your eyesight, you should be able to protect yourself. Jiang Xiu shook his head. It's very dangerous. Qing also understood that fighting for the treasure was actually a massacre. Jiang Xiu's chances of getting it were very low. Moreover, there were so many elders present, especially Hua Luiying, who was also at Qingling Mountain. She frowned and said, It's very dangerous, but this is a rare opportunity. If you're lucky. She believed that since the heavens gave Jiang Xiu such an outstanding talent, he shouldn't be buried. Let's go take a look. If it's dangerous, we won't participate. Seeing her sincerity, Jiang Xiu nodded. Immediately, the two of them rushed towards Bailing Valley. The electromagnetic field in the heavens became thicker and stronger, as if a huge hole had been electrocuted in the sky. Rumble, rumble, chi-chi. In the distance, they saw countless streaks of light rushing towards the ancient times. Everyone controlled their altitude. Even space couldn't withstand the magnetic field in the heavens, so no one dared to get close. Even immortal King Hua Luiying didn't have the guts. In the valley, the massacre had already begun. When Jiang Xiu and Qing flew past, they saw a person being burned to ashes by a Hutu flame in an instant, leaving only a pair of shoes emitting a burnt smell. In the distance, a person was caught in the midst of fleeing, and his head was chopped off by a flying sword. They hadn't even reached Bailing Valley, but what they saw was already hell. Hurry up, it's a mess, Qing said, and her speed suddenly increased. Disciples of Tianqing School, who dares to stop us? Many of them were disciples of sections. They stayed behind to block the people coming from behind for their senior brothers, as well as to block some of the competitors for their senior brothers. Once they heard that they were from Tianqing School, those people all fled in a flash. The deterrence of a large sect was still very strong. This wasn't cultivated in a day or two. More importantly, the disciples of Tianqing School were very strong. At most, they could only fill the gaps between the opponent's teeth. They couldn't be of any real use at all. Humph! Qing unceremoniously slashed forward with her sword. A crescent-shaped blade pushed forward, and everything in front of her was cut open. She and Jiang Xiu's figures rushed along the path of the blade. They rushed out of the dense crowd and flew into the distance. Jiang Xiu and Qing rushed to Bailing Valley, but Hua Luiying and Luli were much earlier than them. No one dared to approach within a few miles of Hua Luiying, but even so, her face was still so cold that it was frightening. 100 underworlds converged, 7 stars aligned, the firmament opened, and Qingling appeared. She thought that she was the only one who knew this sentence, but she didn't expect that a question from Lingxi Pavilion would make it known to everyone in the world. Although she wasn't afraid of attracting so many people to fight over Qingling, she was irritated. In addition, she was also worried that there would be unforeseen events. Stop them. Kill anyone who dares to come close. Hua Zijian, led by Luli, responded loudly. Master. With a scream, they saw that the electric porcelain in the sky had finally fallen from above. It was a huge electromagnetic field that covered 100 miles. It was pitch black inside, and there were electric arcs outside. Even space couldn't withstand the power. Retreat quickly. Hua Luiying looked up, and her expression suddenly changed. Look, there's an egg falling from inside. It's a green beast egg. This time, the entire mountain range was in an uproar. Everyone was shocked as if they were possessed. They looked at the beast egg that was emitting a strange soft light as it fell from the sky. Inside was the ancient beast, Qingling beast. Hua Luiying was also stunned. At this moment, his heart started thumping wildly. It's finally here. Chapter 656. The verdant spirit beast's egg is falling. Someone shouted excitedly. The verdant spirit beast's egg emitted a light that was unusually soft and mysterious. However, it was falling at an alarming speed like a meteorite. People were worried that the egg would not be able to withstand it and explode. However, the verdant spirit beast's egg seemed to be extremely hard. Even a meteorite could not withstand it. However, the egg was not affected at all. Moreover, there seemed to be some runes shining on the egg. The shocking speed of the fall caused the sky to shake. There was also a terrifying electromagnetic cloud in the sky. It was extremely shocking. It was as if a demon had been born. It's really Bailing Valley. The direction in which the egg fell was as they had expected. However, no one rushed over because the electromagnetic cloud in the sky had also fallen. Even space could not withstand the opening of the eyes of the heavens. It was definitely not something that any living thing could withstand. Even the immortal king, Hua Ying, could not withstand it. She had to escape. Everyone escaped from the area where the electromagnetic cloud fell. The terrifying electromagnetic cloud that covered hundreds of miles fell from the sky. The dust in the air was electrocuted into powder. As the electromagnetic cloud fell, the sky and earth became dark as if the end of the world had arrived. Qin Qing and Jiang Xiu were not among them. They stopped in the distance and looked at the terrifying electromagnetic cloud. The electromagnetic cloud was very thick. No one knew how terrifying the power contained in it was. However, when it fell, there was a continuous surge of black power. It was extremely heavy and weighed more than 10,000 pounds. The sky is falling. At this moment, it really felt as if the sky was falling. Darkness descended. Amidst the rumbling, the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. It was pressing towards Bailing Valley. Hua Luiying had already appeared outside the electromagnetic cloud. The wind was howling and the sky was filled with black smoke. She stood on the cliff with a nervous and cold gaze. When the electromagnetic cloud landed, she would snatch the egg. Whoever dared to snatch it from her would be killed without mercy. How terrifying! On the side, Lu Li and the others were extremely shocked. They had never seen such a celestial phenomenon. Disciples, listen to my orders. When the electromagnetic cloud lands, kill anyone who goes near Bailing Valley. Yes. Jiang Xiu looked at everything in front of him. His face was still indifferent and expressionless. Beside him, Qin Qing said, when the electromagnetic cloud lands, not a single blade of grass will grow in Bailing Valley. Just one green spirit beast egg. True powerhouses such as plants were all incomparably tyrannical. For example, within a few meters of truffle, not a single blade of grass grew. It absorbed all of the nutrients, to the point that no other plants could survive. This beast egg had just appeared, yet it already had such destructive power. Junior brother, what do you think? Should we snatch it? Jiang Xiu shook his head. Qin Qing was anxious for Jiang Xiu. This was his best chance. Rather than being a piece of trash, why not take a gamble? If he succeeded, his achievements would be limitless. Are we giving up just like that? He could no longer see anything in front of him. All he could see was the black wind, and his ears were filled with the howling of the wind. Boom! When the electromagnetic cloud landed on the ground, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. It violently crashed into the ground, causing the entire earth to shake. Although it couldn't be seen, one could imagine the devastation that the ground had to endure at this moment. He landed. Even people in the air could feel the vibrations. Chi-chi, chi-chi chi-chi. Boom. The huge air pressure, along with the electromagnetic cloud, rushed in all directions. Even though they were hundreds of miles apart, Jiang Xiu could feel a powerful airflow rushing towards him. Qin Qing reached out and grabbed him. Go, hurry up and snatch it. After the airflow rushed over, countless conveyance lights had already rushed towards Bailing Valley. The conveyance lights were like schools of fish at the bottom of the sea that saw fish food falling into the water. They threw it over, extremely magnificent and dazzling. Hua Zijian, Overlord Hua has ordered that those who enter Bailing Valley will be killed without mercy. Hua Zijian's disciples rushed out from the side. You can become an immortal emperor if you get the green spirit beast. There's no need to be afraid of Hua Luiying at all. In the face of such a huge temptation, Hua Luiying's name couldn't scare them. Even if Jiang Luoxia was standing in Bailing Valley at this moment, they would never be scared. They had already gone crazy. The two forces immediately strangled each other. For a moment, sword light crisscrossed the sky. Blood splattered everywhere. Screams, angry roars, and bitter coldness resounded throughout the world. Corpses fell from the sky one after another. It was tragic, incomparably tragic. Jiang Xiu's eyes were indifferent as he watched all this from afar. He didn't seem to be in a hurry to snatch the beast elixir at all. On the side, Qin Qing was already a little impatient. She looked at Jiang Xiu and saw that he was still indifferent. She wondered if he had really given up like this. The killing continued. Fresh lives were harvested like weeds. Hua Zijian's disciples were very strong, but in the face of thousands of people, they could only kill one by one. They had already sacrificed a lot of people. If this continued, they would be killed sooner or later. After more than half an hour, the dense light spots in the sky had now become sparse. The number of people who had died was probably as high as 100,000, or even more. Go! The crowd rushed over. Hua Zijian couldn't stop everyone outside. By the time they arrived at Bailing Valley, many seniors and elders from other sects had already arrived. However, they were all blocked outside the valley. Junior brother Jiang, this way. Qin Qing pulled him and followed a part of the crowd, rushing towards Bailing Valley in the distance. What's going on? Hua Luiying stood at the cliff with a group of disciples behind her. They blocked the entrance of the valley. The power of an immortal king was completely displayed at this moment. Who doesn't want to die? Enter the valley and try. On the ground at the entrance of the valley, there was a pile of corpses and a pool of blood. The crowd at the entrance of the valley glared at her with angry eyes. Qin Qing made a strange sound. She looked around curiously. There were no traces of electromagnetic burns on the ground. The surrounding trees were still green and lush. The ground didn't seem to have suffered much damage. Where is the green spirit beast egg? Where did it fall? Jiang Xiu didn't answer. No one should be able to answer this question now. He looked into the distance. Lu Li, who was behind Hua Luiying, saw Jiang Xiu's strange and nervous expression. Sect Master Hua, you're too overbearing. There are many great celestial immortals here. Do you think we can't deal with you if we swarm you? An elder in white said. That's right. There are so many of us. We can crush you to death. The green spirit beast is so huge. You're too greedy to want to monopolize it. Hua Luiying's expression was cold. She looked at this group of people indifferently. I want to monopolize it. You want to share it with me? Are you qualified? Not only was there a difference in status, but there was also a difference in strength. The difference between an immortal king and a great celestial immortal couldn't be made up with numbers. In Hua Luiying's eyes, there was no difference between a great celestial immortal and an ordinary celestial immortal. It was all a matter of one technique. If you're not convinced, you can try. Although everyone present was furious, the hunter would shoot the bird that stuck its head out. Whoever stuck their head out would be the first to die. In the face of great pressure, no one was so stupid. In the end, they all looked at each other. Go and look for the beast egg. Yes. The group of disciples answered and immediately prepared to leave. Of course, Lu Li also planned to look for it. However, Hua Luiying glanced at her and suddenly said, Lu Li, you stay. Lu Li was stunned but quickly said, Yes, honored master. However, a strange feeling welled up in her heart. All the senior and junior sisters had gone to look for it. Why was she the only one left behind? It seemed that honored master was beginning to distrust her. She looked towards Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was still calm and collected. It didn't take long before a shout came from afar. Found it, master, found it. The beast egg must have smashed a big hole when it fell. Hearing this, everyone's hearts were as one. The ancient beast, green spirit beast, had been found. What made them even more excited was that it was a beast egg. They could absorb the energy inside without any qualms. In addition, they could raise it as their natal pet. One could imagine how terrifying its power would be once the green spirit beast grew up. Honored master, come quickly. Hua Luiying's eyes glowed with a fiery light. His entire person transformed into a ray of light and shot into the distance. In the next second, he appeared beside that disciple and saw a beast that was emitting a soft light like a rock lying limply on the grass. Chapter 657. Once they heard that the egg of the verdant spirit beast had been found, they couldn't hold back anymore. The huge temptation made them lose their rationality. If they took a gamble, the rewards would be too shocking. They couldn't care about anything else and flew towards the egg of the verdant spirit beast, afraid that it would really fall into Hua Luiying's hands if they were late. Everyone, don't hold back. Swarm forward. Once Hua Luiying dies, we'll split the egg of the verdant spirit beast equally. Anyone with a brain would know how this could happen. However, countless times in history had proven that people would often be blinded by benefits at this moment. The peak master of Luoyan Peak, Su Qingquan, was among them. 3 elements to nature. Wind destruction. 9 in extreme evil. All kinds of powerful spells and sword techniques blasted towards Hua Luiying from all directions like a bombardment of cannons. There were more than 10 great celestial immortals in this crowd. Although the power of a great celestial immortal's attack couldn't be compared to the power of a celestial king, which was as fine as a nuclear weapon, the lethality was incomparably terrifying. It was enough to raise Hua Luiying to the ground. Noisy. Hua Luiying's gaze swept lightly. Her tall and slender figure slowly turned around. At the same time, she flung her sleeves, and a wave of air surged out like flowing water. This power was completely different from that of a great celestial immortal. Although it was done casually, the entire space-time was distorted, and it surged towards the great celestial immortals who filled the sky. Hua Huan's group. Pieces of runes condensed into bright flower petals and flew out. They flipped irregularly in the space-time turbulence and seemed to emit a moving fragrance. Jiang Xiu was a few miles away. His expression changed and he said to Qin Qing beside him, "Quick, escape to the right." Qin Qing didn't understand. Hua Luiying was so far away from them. Did junior brother Jiang think that she could threaten them with a wave of her hand? Escape? She didn't think so, but of course she believed Jiang Xiu's words. The two of them flew to the side. Boom. Hua Huan's group felt like the Big Bang caused by the passage of space-time. The great celestial kings at the front widened their eyes in shock. They had never challenged a celestial king before, and the power in front of them made them feel despair. Fight! It was too late to dodge. The tens of great heavenly immortals unleashed all their magic powers as well. Both their hands formed hand seals as they pushed forward like wheels. This was their strongest attack, unleashing their full power. All kinds of colorful lights surged, crushing and strangling. The battle was incomparably dazzling. However, the dozen or so grand celestial immortals joined forces and perfectly performed an idiom. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. When the flower illusion current surged over, they were like a lone boat in the sea encountering a stormy sea. When the 1,000-meter-tall waves came crashing over, they were destroyed. They had no power to resist at all. The magic that filled the sky collapsed in the air, and the grand celestial immortals were sent flying one by one. Whoosh! The ferocious air pressure rushed over, crushing the wild grass and flowers on the ground, as well as the rocks and trees on both sides of the road into powder. In the blink of an eye, it had already traveled several li. The heavenly immortals who were watching from afar had no time to dodge at all. All they could do was widen their eyes in horror as their bodies exploded into wreckage. Oh my God! Qin Qing was dumbfounded. If Jiang Xiu hadn't taken him one step ahead, they would have been like the flesh and blood in front of them, slowly flowing down from the sky. How terrifying! Was this the power of an immortal king? The grand celestial immortals' bodies were much stronger. They weren't like heavenly immortals who had perfected great Daos protecting their bodies. However, they all fell heavily to the ground, spitting out blood as they wailed in pain. They were seriously injured and couldn't get up. They were basically powerless to attack. Can't even withstand a single blow. Hua Luiying snorted disdainfully. The people who were rushing over were all stunned when they saw this scene. This was too terrifying. More than 10 grand celestial immortals were defeated in one move, and so many innocent heavenly immortals were implicated. No one dared to approach anymore. Beside her, Luli was trembling all over. Master's strength was much stronger than she had imagined. Does anyone else want a share of the loot? Su Qingquan and the others fell to the ground and struggled to prop up half of their bodies. Their faces were pale, and they couldn't summon any magic power. No matter how unwilling they were, it was useless. They weren't a match at all. They could only glance at the beast egg. It was within reach, but they would never be able to touch it. It was so close yet so far. Jiang Xiu said, "Come, let's go over." Over? Qin Qing said, "Don't you want to live anymore?" Previously, she had supported Jiang Xiu in fighting for the beast's core, but after seeing Hua Luiying's strength, she completely gave up on this idea. "It's okay." After speaking, the two of them flew over. Hua Luiying frowned. There were still people who weren't afraid of death. Lu Li said from the side, "Master is Jiang Ge. It seems like he won't dare to fight with Master." After Jiang Xiu landed, he cupped his hands and said, "Greetings, Sect Master Hua." Hua Luiying wasn't in the mood to deal with Jiang Xiu now. "What, you've taken a fancy to the beast egg too?" Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, "I still want to live for a few more years. The beast egg can only belong to Sect Master Hua." You're indeed much smarter than these idiots." "Then what are you doing here?" Jiang Xiu said. "To witness a miracle. I want to see what kind of earth-shattering changes Sect Master Hua will undergo after obtaining the sacred beast. Perhaps I'll have the chance to witness the birth of an immortal emperor." Jiang Xiu's tone was still cold and dull, but Hua Luiying felt exceptionally comfortable listening to it. "It seems that I've thought too much." She had previously thought of guarding against Jiang Xiu because sometimes he did indeed remind Hua Luiying of Jiang Luoxia. Also, her own disciple Lu Li's reaction towards her was too strange. She was also mixed up with Jiang Xiu. Although she couldn't say what was going on, she felt uneasy. "You really like to join in the fun." Jiang Xiu bowed and said, "Please grant my wish, Sect Master Hua." "I'll allow it." Hua Luiying was someone who loved to be in the limelight. Under such circumstances, she couldn't wait for more spectators. Jiang Xiu was too familiar with her and knew that she definitely wouldn't reject it. Lu Li's face was a little pale. She said nervously, "Shizhuan, let's act quickly. A long delay means trouble. If an immortal king rushes over, we'll be in trouble." "Yes." Hua Luiying glanced at Lu Li with a strange expression. She was once sure that Lu Li already knew that she was the one who killed her senior sisters. Now it didn't seem like it. If she really found out, why would she remind her? She should be thinking of ways to delay time. Jiang Xiu interrupted and said, "I wonder what Sect Master Hua's plan is." Hua Luiying said, "Jiang Xiu, you're quite rich. Tell me, what should I do next?" Jiang Xiu said, "There are only two possibilities. The first is, of course, to absorb the green spirit beast's power for your own use. According to Old Mountain's description of the green spirit beast, absorbing 1/10 or even 1/100th of it is enough for you to become an immortal emperor and rule the world. The second is to make the green spirit beast recognize you as its master and raise it into a divine beast. In the future, its power can be on par with the green spirit beast. This is probably 1 or 2 levels higher than an immortal emperor." Hua Luiying nodded slightly and said, "You're right. There are indeed only 2 possibilities. Which one do you think I should choose?" Jiang Xiu said without hesitation, "The first." "Oh, why?" Jiang Xiu said, "Absorb the green spirit beast's power. Although you lose the green spirit beast, the power belongs to you. It's fast and steady. On the other hand, the second option is to raise a beast. I don't know how to raise one, but before the green spirit beast grows, it's inevitable that there won't be people who are afraid of Sect Master Hua's future threat and join forces to annihilate you." Hua Luiying listened and nodded repeatedly. What Jiang Xiu said was right. Qingling beast needed time to grow, and before that, she would be in trouble because of her wealth. I also plan to directly absorb the green spirit beast's power. Hua Luiying's eyes blazed. Once she absorbed the green spirit beast's power, she would advance to become an immortal emperor. In the current immortal martial continent, there were almost no immortal emperors. Once she became an immortal emperor, she would be the subject of thousands of sections. Those who looked down on her and offended her would all pay the price. Humph. Her gaze fell on the beast egg. The beast egg was 1 meter in size. It was shiny and emitted a soft light. There were strange runes drawn on the shell. Those were runes that she had never seen before and were very ancient. Just by looking at these runes, she could feel the green spirit beast's power. Then I'll begin. After speaking, she stretched out her slender hand and pressed on the shell, beginning to absorb the power inside. Chapter 658. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened involuntarily. A moment that would go down in history was descending. An immortal emperor might be born in front of their eyes. On the other hand, Luli's face was pale and cold sweat was dripping from her forehead. She was very nervous, so nervous that her hands and feet were cold. While everyone was paying attention to the beast egg, her eyes were looking for Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu's expression was still indifferent. The beast egg shone with a strong light, making his face look so cold. Luli hurriedly turned her head to look and was shocked. Hua Luiying's eyes kept flashing strangely, but then she frowned. She could feel that the life in the beast egg was even wriggling. The little guy was even a little scared. However, she tried to absorb but couldn't absorb any power. Strange. Why can't I feel any power or absorb any power? How can this be? Hua Luiying's slender palm turned over and her 5 fingers moved. The black cyclone light faintly formed a whirlpool in her palm. It was incomparably evil. Jiang Xiu had seen an evil technique before. It could instantly absorb a huge beast that weighed a few hundred kilograms, leaving nothing behind. This move of hers was probably even more overbearing than that person's. Humph. Hua Luiying's palm slowly pressed against the beast egg. The beast egg seemed to feel threatened and vibrated slightly. However, no matter how strong you will be when you mature, at this moment, you are just an egg. At most, you are just a slightly bigger egg. Little thing. Hua Luiying's jade hand pressed against it mercilessly. One could see the strong suction force in her palm. Everyone held their breaths. Why can't I feel any power? There's not even a trace of power. There's only life? Hua Luiying could only let go. Her willowy eyebrows were tightly knitted. Jiang Xiu muttered. The green spirit beast is said to be an extraordinary ancient beast. It must be very strong in self-defense. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I'm afraid that even an immortal king might not be able to hurt it. Hua Luiying nodded after hearing this. That makes sense. An ancient beast should be incomparably strong even in its infancy. Otherwise, if it could survive, then it's a little troublesome. She couldn't think of a way to absorb the green spirit beast's power. Looks like I can only use the second method. Jiang Xiu said. Sect Master is talking about using a drop of blood to refine the verdant spirit beast into a divine pet. She nodded slightly. This was the only way. Originally, she wanted to make the green spirit beast her natal divine beast. Since ancient times, people had raised powerful exotic beasts. With an ancient divine beast as her natal divine beast, it was only a matter of time before she became an immortal emperor. With an equally powerful exotic beast as her natal divine beast, it was equal to having 2 immortal emperors. However, Jiang Xiu's first method sounded more eager for quick success and benefits, which was in line with her current situation, so she chose the first method. Hua Luiying bit his finger and squeezed out a drop of essence blood. He even took out a talisman. Jiang Xiu said, So Sect Master Hua has already prepared everything. It seems that I've been meddlesome. Hua Luiying smiled proudly. Don't tell me that at my age. I'm not as experienced as a fledgling like you. Of course, I have to prepare the blood-dripping talisman. It was rare for Hua Luiying to crack a joke. It could be seen that she was in a good mood. However, she realized that Liuli's breathing was problematic and her face was frighteningly pale. If one looked closely, her fingers were even trembling slightly. Hua Luiying felt a little regretful. If only the Jiang Xiu in front of her was that all-powerful Jiang Luoxia. He probably wouldn't have thought that I would have such a day. Such a great opportunity. Contract. As she spoke, she slapped her talisman onto the beast egg, and a violent blood-red light exploded with a bang. Following that, the talisman's light also appeared. The beast egg gave off a feeling of joy, and Hua Luiying revealed a charming smile. This little guy is quite happy. All of a sudden, all of the light entered the egg. Finally, it condensed into the word contract, and slowly disappeared on the beast shell. Congratulations, Master, congratulations, Master. Hua Luiying laughed heartily and opened her hands excitedly. She felt that from now on, she had the whole world. She didn't need to raise her nose in the air anymore. Instead, everyone had to bow down to her. What a pity, what a pity. Jiang Luoxia, what a pity that you're already dead. I didn't get to see this scene. The Hua Luiying that you looked down on and sneered at, is going to become a celestial emperor. Celestial emperor. The last roar resounded through the heavens and earth, echoing in the ancient temple. It didn't dissipate for a long time. Hua Luiying's gaze became incomparably sharp and more domineering than usual. Lu Li's nervous and fearful expression slowly disappeared, and was replaced by sadness. Hua Luiying found this expression to be rather strange. Liuli, aren't you happy for honored master? Liuli's tone was a little flat. Happy? Honored master, Liuli has a question that I've always wanted to ask you. Hua Luiying was in a good mood. She flicked her sleeves and said, ask away. Liuli looked directly at honored master's face. She had never been so brave to look directly at honored master. Liuli wants to know why honored master killed those senior sisters. Senior sister Dongwan, senior sister Lu Meinyang, senior sister Shuehua, senior sister Yi Tongxi. Hearing this, all the sisters present widened their eyes in shock. Liuli, what nonsense are you talking about? Quickly apologized to honored master. One of Hua Zhejian's disciples was so scared that her face turned pale. Hua Luiying's brows furrowed slightly, but very quickly, a strange smile appeared on her face. In the past she was still afraid, but now that she had obtained the green spirit beast, she was going to become a celestial emperor. What could Hua Zhejian's elders do to her? Her eyes were frighteningly cold. As expected, you already know. Hearing Hua Luiying admit it personally, Liuli's eyes were filled with endless grief. Why did you kill them? Hua Luiying said. Because they deserved to die. A disciple actually wanted to compete with honored master for beauty and fame. Don't you think they deserved to die? Liuli didn't understand and said agitatedly. Just because those senior sisters were beautiful and became famous? Hua Luiying said. That's not enough. Every one of Hua Zhejian's female disciples present was stunned. Liuli said, then honored master, will you kill me? Will I? Hua Luiying secretly shook her head, her face carrying a sneer. My foolish disciple, you're too foolish. Why did you have to say it out loud? You could totally pretend that you didn't know. That way, you would have a chance to live. You've revealed everything. Do you think that honored master would let you off? There was no fear on Liuli's face, nor was there any annoyance. There wasn't even any sadness, only relief. Honored master. Liuli was so scared. Scared of doing something wrong. But now Liuli finally doesn't have to be scared anymore. These words confused Hua Luiying. What do you mean? Liuli said. Jiang Gu is absolutely right. Hua Luiying's gaze swept towards Jiang Xiao. You told her? Her eyes contained a terrifying murderous intent. In the past, she was still a little afraid of Tianxing School, but now, who would she be afraid of? Jiang Xiao nodded and said, Indeed, I told her. Hua Luiying's gaze became even colder. You've got guts, daring to sow discord in my Hua Zhejian. This honored master thinks you're alive. Jiang Xiao said. I just don't want the tragedy to repeat itself on her. Moreover, what I said was far more than that. Hua Luiying looked at Jiang Xiao and sneered. Then what else did you say? Jiang Xiao smiled faintly and pointed at the beast egg in the distance. He walked over and said, There's also this. 100 underworlds converged, 7 stars aligned. The firmament opened its eyes, the blue spirit appeared. Hua Luiying frowned and said, What does this have to do with you? Seeing Jiang Xiao walk towards the beast egg, Hua Luiying didn't think much of it. The beast egg couldn't even threaten her, much less Jiang Xiao. A good-for-nothing whose life artifact had been shattered. A strange sound came from the beast egg. It was a sizzling sound, as if the little guy inside was moving and wanted to break out of its shell. According to Zhai Xinglu's records, this kind of celestial phenomenon only appears once every 100,000 years. The last time it appeared was over 70,000 years ago. Hua Luiying's expression changed. What do you mean? She had an inexplicable bad feeling in her heart. Bang! A crisp sound rang out and a crack appeared on the beast egg. Was the ancient beast, the blue spirit beast, about to come out? I mean, it's impossible for this kind of celestial phenomenon to appear now. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.